Chapter 91. Not long after, Li Yang arrived at Nangongzhi's side. Li Yang's heavy breathing was enough to prove how much effort she had put in to get here as soon as possible. Seeing Nangongzhi's calm expression, Li Yang went up and gave him a bear hug. The huge force made Nangongzhi a little breathless. He patted Li Yang's shoulder, indicating for her to let him go. Li Yang instantly understood. After letting go of Nangongzhi, her pair of tiger eyes stared at Nangongzhi. "Kit, you're finally back." When Li Yang said that, her expression changed a little. "I say, how long has it been since we last met? Has your sexual orientation changed?" Looking at the obviously abnormal Li Yang in front of him, Nangongzhi deliberately put on a disgusting, "don't come near me" expression. Looking at Nangongzhi's expression in front of her, Li Yang felt that all her concern had been fed to a dog. She looked like she was about to lose control and go up to Nangongzhi to beat him up. Suddenly, a smile appeared on Nangongzhi's face, and Li Yang also laughed out loud. The two of them reached out their hands at the same time and held each other's hands. Whether it was Nangongzhi's white and slender hand or Li Yang's rough and wide hand at this moment, they held each other's hands tightly. "Welcome back," Li Yang smiled and said at the same time. These days, Nangongzhi was immersed in the banishment trial, which scared Li Yang out of her wits. The two of them were connected by life and death, so Nangongzhi's abnormal mental state was all the same. Li Yang shared almost real-time information. When Nangongzhi was bitten by 100 ghosts during the banishment trial, and when he was severely injured in the battle with the banishment, Li Yang felt that Nangongzhi's heart was not the same as Nangongzhi's. Li Yang really did not feel the same way. Li Yang was very clear about what Nangongzhi had gone through during this period of time. Every time he felt Nangongzhi's pain, he would ask himself if it was right to let Nangongzhi use the boulder formation to summon the remnant soul of the banishment sword. These days, Li Yang had been blaming herself in her heart. This was also the reason why Li Yang had acted so strangely and lost his composure. Gong gong. Just as Nangongzhi wanted to say something to Li Yang, a familiar voice came from afar. Nangongzhi didn't continue talking to Li Yang. Instead, he quickly ran towards the source of the sound. Finally, the figure in the distance became clear. It was Mashiro. Although Nangongzhi already knew that Mashiro was also in the Lion Clan's secret place, when he really saw Mashiro at this moment, Nangongzhi couldn't help but feel waves in his heart. "Mashiro?" Nangongzhi stood in front of Mashiro, smiled, and called out the name of the girl standing in front of him. "Pa." Before Nangongzhi could finish his words, Mashiro slapped Nangongzhi's face. Just like that, a red five-finger mark appeared on his originally handsome face. "You still know how to come back." They had already found the location of the Lion Clan in Li Yang and could return safely. But you just had to follow the words of that strange sword spirit in your broken sword and use that boulder formation to push yourself into such a dangerous situation. Are you stupid? Don't you know that whether it's me, Roar-san, or Little Linger, we are all waiting for you to come home? Nangongzhi listened to Mashiro's series of accusations and knew that what he did this time was really irrational. In fact, when Nangongzhi and Li Yang were in the space crack, they were guided by the remnant spirit of banishment hidden in the heavens disaster sword and came to this hidden space of the Lion Clan. However, banishment clearly told Nangongzhi and Li Yang about the dangers that the shinobi world was about to face. In order to let Nangongzhi focus on the trial, he even sealed all the memories of Nangongzhi before he arrived at the Lion Clan's territory. However, it was precisely this trial that lasted as long as 6 months. Even when Li Yang returned to the Woodleaf and explained the situation to Mashiro, Roar, and Little Linger, she didn't say that Nangongzhi wouldn't be safe. And to ensure that Nangongzhi wouldn't be in any danger, the three women in Konoha couldn't help but start to worry about Nangongzhi. In order to determine the situation of Nangongzhi, the three women decided to follow Li Yang to the different space of the Lion Clan. But Li Yang finally persuaded Nangongro, who was still working in the Woodleaf, and Little Linger, who was too young, stayed in the Woodleaf. But it was precisely Mashiro, who usually had the most gentle temperament and seemed to be the most aloof, who was unusually persistent this time. With no other choice, Li Yang could only bring Mashiro here. In order to not let Nangongzhi's trial undisturbed, Mashiro could only look at Nangongzhi from a distance every time. Looking at Nangongzhi's hair growing a little bit, his clothes were tattered, and layers of dust were superimposed on Nangongzhi's body. In this way, Mashiro felt that he had passed the most difficult 3 months of his life. Looking at the palm print on Nangongzhi's face, Mashiro's eyes were slowly filled with tears, and he hugged Nangongzhi in front of him. "You bastard! Doing this kind of dangerous thing again and again, can't you be more obedient?" Mashiro threw himself into Nangongzhi's arms, crying and saying, "I'm sorry." Originally, Nangongja wanted to explain to Mashiro why he made such a choice, but looking at Mashiro's sad appearance, Nangongja couldn't say anything. He could only press one hand on Mashiro's head and gently stroke it, while the other hand hugged Mashiro's shoulder that was trembling from crying. Nangongja hugged Mashiro like this, and Mashiro was crying in Nangongja's arms. Finally, Mashiro's crying gradually stopped. Using both hands, she struggled out of Nangongja's arms. She rubbed her eyes that were red from crying. I have to hurry back to Woodleaf. Sister Rower and Little Linger are still waiting for me to tell them that you've woken up." Mashiro felt uncomfortable under Nangongja's gaze. She avoided Nangongja's eyes and didn't dare to look him in the eye. As she said that, she looked like she wanted to hurry back to Woodleaf with Liang. But just as Mashiro turned around, Nangongja grabbed Mashiro's wrist. "Okay, you don't have to be so anxious. I'll go look for Ryo in a while and ask him to arrange for Arthur to go to Konoha. I'll tell Ro-er and Ray-er about it. As for you?" Nangongja looked at Mashiro, who was standing in front of him. Not only were her eyes red from crying, but she also looked haggard. "You should rest well for a few days. Space travel has a high requirement for a person's physique. You haven't cultivated before, but you managed to withstand such power. You've been watching me these days, so you definitely didn't rest well. You should rest well and leave the rest to me." Chapter 92. Ignoring what Mashiro wanted to say, Nangongja carried Mashiro in his arms. Looking at Nangongja, who was so close to her, feeling the hot air from Nangongja's nose and the warmth from Nangongja's body, Mashiro felt that all her words were suppressed. She just wanted to stay in Nangongja's arms. A pair of beautiful eyes stared at Nangongja's cheeks. Her fair cheeks were naturally covered with a layer of red makeup. "Oh, what are you looking at? I just want to send you to sleep." Nangongja also noticed that Mashiro had been staring at him. He thought that Mashiro didn't want to go back to sleep. Therefore he said this without understanding the situation. Looking at Nangongja's expression, Mashiro could only roll her eyes back at Nangongja. Nangongja stood in place and looked around for a long time. There was only grass all around him and he didn't know where to go. He could only make some strange noises, hoping to remind Zhenbai where to go. However, Mashiro, who was usually smart, seemed to be in a daze at this moment. She didn't notice the awkwardness in Nangongja's heart at all. Nangongja had no choice but to open his mouth and ask, "Where should I go to send you back to your place? After I came here with Liang last time, I didn't stay for long and ran to the cave." Mashiro finally realized that Nangongja didn't know where to send her. She covered her mouth with her small hand and giggled. "Idiot Miyagi." Laughing, Mashiro didn't forget to scold Nangongja. However, at the same time, she pointed out the direction to Nangongja with her other hand. "You're blaming me? I've never walked around this place before, how would I know where to go?" After knowing the direction, Nangongja picked up his speed and ran towards Mashiro's place. While running, she was still mumbling as if she was a little emotional. However, Mashiro was in Nangongja's arms at this moment. Even if she was mumbling, Mashiro could still hear it. However, this only made Mashiro laugh even louder and more excitedly. Looking at Mashiro in his arms, Nangongja couldn't connect this girl who was laughing with the girl who was crying in his arms just now. Sure enough, it was hard to guess the thoughts of girls. Following Mashiro's direction, Nangongja quickly found a small wooden house located on a small hill. At the bottom of the hill, there was a slightly wide but shallow stream. A large tree grew beside the small house. No one knew how long this tree had lived. Its huge canopy almost covered the entire small house. In front of the small house there was a small flower bed. There were many small flowers that Nangongja knew, some of which looked familiar. The lion clan isn't a social animal, and they live in the open. This small house was built with Li Yang's help. That huge tree seems to be the pillar that supports the stability of this world. Mashiro seemed to have noticed Nangongja's doubts, so she explained. "This place is really not bad, although it's not as exquisite as our home in Woodleaf. However, it's closer to nature here and it's very comfortable. In the future we can often come here to live, whether it's physical or mental, it's very good." Nangongja himself can draw on the power of nature. Coupled with the banishment of Nangongja's training, Nangongja's spiritual power and perception of natural energy have improved a lot. When Nangongja came out of the cave, he already felt the density of natural energy around him. It's much higher than any place he has been in the ninja world. When he came near the small hill and the big tree, Nangongja felt that the natural energy around him is no longer in the form of concepts, but it's about to condense into a physical substance. With such rich natural energy, Even people who haven't practiced martial arts will naturally relax, and under the subtle influence of natural energy, their physical fitness will slowly improve. If it's someone who has practiced martial arts, then they can actively absorb the natural energy around them to enrich their body and spirit. It can be said that there are a lot of benefits. Hearing Nangongja say that this place is very good, Mishiro felt very happy for a while and nodded. After all, this place was slowly tidied up by himself, and being able to make Nangongja like it, Mishiro also felt a different kind of satisfaction in his heart. Looking at Nangongja still holding himself tightly in his arms, Mishiro only felt that he has lived with Nangongja for a long time, like a pair of lovers who have been in love for many years, looking for a place to settle down. Creak. Because the whole room was made of wood, when Nangongja opened the door of the hut, it was difficult to avoid the sound of the door-post rubbing against each other. Looking at the extraordinarily clean room, Nangongja couldn't help but smile. I still remember the first time I saw you, you were very dull and a little sloppy. There were even some undergarments mixed in with the clothes all over the floor. Look at you now, you actually like to tidy up so much. Nangongja actually remembered the first time he met Mishiro. Annoying. No matter what, it has been so long, how can I not have improved at all? Mishiro slightly pouted as she used her small fist to punch Nangongja's shoulder. He pulled open Mishiro's blanket on the bed, and gently put Mishiro in his arms on the bed, and looked at the girl who has been with him for almost 2 years. Nangongja was also filled with emotions. Thinking about it, we have known each other for almost 2 years, right? Nangongja's words also pulled Mishiro into the memories. Yes, just in these 2 years alone. You have already fainted twice in a row and countless injuries. Mishiro said, with a hint of bitterness in her tone. You and Rower have been worried enough because of me. In the end, it is because I am not strong enough. If I was strong enough to kill gods, then how would I be able to do it? Why would I make you worry about me like this every day? Nangongja said, but Mishiro had already begun to shake her head. She pressed her hand on Nangongja's cheek. Gong gong to me. You are still the most powerful hero this world has given me. You have protected me time and time again. You are very strong, not only because of your swordsmanship but also because of your inner strength. It is also because of your gentleness and compassion. Chapter 93. Hearing Mishiro's words, Nangongja couldn't help but blush. After all, with Nangongja's personality, he would be a little embarrassed if someone suddenly called him a hero. He reached out his hand and touched Mishiro's forehead as she lay on the bed. Nangongja smiled. Okay, don't try to enlighten me. I can still accept these things. The most important thing for you now is to have a good sleep, right? Looking at Nangongja's smiling face, feeling the warmth from Nangongja's palm, Mishiro buried his head deep in the blanket. Okay. Although Mishiro's voice was very soft, Nangongja still heard it clearly. Nangongja smiled and nodded slightly. Then he was ready to take his hand away and discuss some things with Liang. Just as Nangongja stood up, he suddenly felt his sleeve being pulled. The person pulling Nangongja's sleeve was Mishiro lying on the bed. No. Don't go. Or, can you wait until I fall asleep? Half of Mishiro's face was buried in the blanket, only his eyes could be seen. She was looking at Nangongja, who was standing beside her bed, shyly and hopefully. If you still have something to do, you don't have to accompany me. Seeing Nangongja's hesitation, Mishiro spoke intermittently. But in Mishiro's eyes, there was still some disappointment. It's okay, I'll accompany you until you fall asleep. In fact, Nangongja wasn't in a hurry. Plus, Mishiro was looking at him like this, so how could he refuse? Nangongja sat on Mishiro's bed again and held Mishiro's little hand. Be good, have a good sleep. Hearing Nangongja's voice, Mishiro slowly closed her eyes. Slowly he entered his own dreamland. Which girl didn't yearn for love? How could a young man not be sentimental? Mishiro's dream was the most realistic portrayal of herself. The big tree, the wooden house, the small stream at the foot of the mountain. Everything was exactly the same as Mishiro's current place, but the big tree seemed to have grown a little bigger, and the wooden house was a little more dilapidated. What should we eat today? A slightly hunched figure slowly pushed open the door of the wooden house. The figure's white hair proved that he had lived a long life. Although there were more wrinkles on his face and his skin was a little loose. But one could still vaguely see that it was Nangongja. He followed behind Nangongja and walked out of the wooden house. He was also an old man, and upon closer inspection he looked a little like Mishiro. Just do it as you see fit. I've already brewed your tea and put it under the tree. You can drink some when you want to. The old Mishiro looked at Nangongja, who was also old. Although he had been busy with some trivial matters, his turbid eyes were full of deep affection. "You seem to have seen the flowers you planted a few years ago?" The old Nangongja squinted his eyes, hoping that he could see the scenery in front of him more clearly. And in the direction that Nangongja was looking at, there was a small flower bed. All kinds of unknown flowers were quietly blooming in the middle of it. They were emitting their own brilliance. "You just found out?" The old Mashiro stood behind Nangongja and patted Nangongja's head with his slightly skinny hand. He seemed to be reprimanding Nangongja, but his words were full of tenderness. "Li Yang, since I've broken free from the trial of banishment, I'm sure you know that banishment is now." After Nangongja saw that Mashiro had fallen asleep, he left Mashiro's wooden house. He specially called Arthur, who was guarding the entrance of the cave, to Mashiro's room to protect Mashiro's safety. Nangongja went straight to Li Yang. Although Nangongja did not finish his sentence, Li Yang understood what Nangongja meant. Banishment was a rare genius and madman. Just like that, the last mark he left in the human world disappeared without anyone knowing. It really made people sigh endlessly. Although banishment was not born in the same era as me, he was still recorded in the ancient records passed down by the Lion clan. Li Yang was also a little emotional. After all, when she first started, she was similar to banishment. She was a remnant soul in the world. Fortunately, she had met Nangongja. Otherwise, she might have ended up like banishment. Her soul might have been destroyed. Nangongja and Li Yang were standing at the entrance of the cave that Nangongja had been in. The more he looked at the deep cave, the more it looked like a mausoleum's tomb. It was a little dark and a little scary. Occasionally there would be a chilly feeling drifting out from it. "Let's use this cave as banishment's tomb?" Nangongja looked at Li Yang and asked. After all, when banishment died, there was nothing left of his body. It was reasonable to use the place where his soul dissipated as his tomb. Li Yang nodded, indicating that she agreed. Thus, Nangongja pulled out the tribulation sword on his back. He gradually poured the natural energy in his body into the tribulation sword. Nangongja's natural energy was like a magnet, constantly attracting the rich natural energy in the surroundings. Under the constant influx of natural energy, the tribulation sword was wrapped in a thick layer of energy. The sword seemed to expand and was covered in a thick layer of green. Feeling that the sword in his hand had accumulated a lot of energy, Nangongja slashed the tribulation sword from bottom to top. "Rise." Following Nangongja's command, the natural energy constantly pulled the earth. A large piece of soil was pulled out. The natural energy constantly spread out from Nangongja's tribulation sword in the form of waves. It was like huge waves hitting a large piece of soil in front of Nangongja. The soil, which was originally loose, slowly became hard under the baptism of the natural energy. When the hitting stopped, the diamond-shaped soil, which was originally 6 meters in size, had been hit until it was only 20 centimeters thick. However, its hardness had already surpassed that of ordinary steel. "Seal." Nangongja pointed the tribulation sword at the entrance of the cave. The soil wall obeyed Nangongja's guidance and buckled into the cave entrance with a loud sound. Looking at the soil wall that had already merged with the mountain, Nangongja heaved a sigh of relief. These days the effect of Lijia's teaching was really amazing. Chapter 94. Nangongja let out a long sigh of relief as he looked at the dirt wall in front of him that had already merged with the mountain wall. After all, he had gathered the dust hidden in the air and condensed it into such a large piece of dirt. At the same time, he had also used the power of nature to temper it. This was indeed a very taxing task. However, this was also the first time Nangongja had used the power of nature after a long period of seclusion. Regardless of whether it was the process or the final result, it made Nangongja feel that he had benefited greatly from the various trials that Lija had undergone during this period of time. Nangongja touched the small palm-sized green jade gourd behind his waist. He began to miss the banishment that had tormented him so much during the trials. "You once said that you only loved 2 things in your life. One was swords and the other was wine. That's why you gave this green jade gourd to me. However, I'm a person who doesn't drink wine. Wouldn't letting this thing follow me be like a pearl covered in dust?" Although Nangongja spoke as if he wasn't very interested in the green jade gourd, the deep reminiscence in his eyes clearly revealed his inner thoughts. "Since that's the case, then write down your tombstone for me." Nangongja shook the tribulation sword in his hand, scattering the power of nature that had coiled around the sword. He gently sheathed the tribulation sword in the scabbard on his back and stretched out his right hand, using it as a sword finger. The sword chi hidden in his body instantly spread over Nangongja's fingers. His fingers, which were originally incomparably weak compared to a sword, were now bearing the extremely destructive sword chi. An inch-long sword light even shot out from his fingertips. Nangongja leaped up high with a light leap. He continuously waved his right arm, carving out marks on the hard dirt wall that Nangongja had just created. This kid has actually improved so much? Li Yang was slightly surprised to see Nangongja using his abilities so skillfully in front of her. After all, Nangongja and Banishment had been training in the spiritual space for a long time, but that was still in the spiritual space. Whether it was the physical quality or the accumulation of inner strength, it was impossible to accomplish. But now, Nangongja was able to use natural energy so easily, and he could even skillfully control the sword energy in his body that had caused him so much trouble. This allowed Li Yang to once again see what kind of genius this junior called Banishment was. Just as Li Yang's mind wandered and she began to think about the banishment, Nangongja also finished carving on the wall. Nangongja flicked off the remaining ashes on his fingers and patted Li Yang's shoulder. "Do you think this epitaph is worthy of banishment?" Li Yang's train of thought was interrupted by Nangongja. She finally had the mood to look at the result of Nangongja's carving on the wall. It would have been better if she didn't look. After looking, Li Yang's mouth began to softly repeat the words written on the wall. When the wine enters the grand intestine, 30% becomes moonlight, 70% becomes sword energy. When the sword is in hand, there are thousands of things in the world. When the sword wielder is in banishment, his soul ends here. Although it was only a few words, it vividly expressed the spirit of banishment. Although I haven't really met this junior called Banishment, I think this person's style should be like this. If I was lucky back then, I would definitely drink with such an interesting guy. Li Yang also had a regretful expression at this moment. There were indeed many experts in this world, but there were far too few people who truly had their own beliefs and wouldn't be swayed by the words of others. Banishment was also an internal energy cultivator who had been possessed by the devil. Although he had been possessed by the devil, he didn't lose his heart in the end. If such a person wasn't suitable to drink with, then who else was suitable? Nangongja tossed the green jade gourd behind him to Li Yang. "This is Banishment's wine gourd." Back then he found an extremely powerful boundary master to engrave a spatial restriction on the wine gourd, causing the space inside to become extremely large. In the last few years before Banishment left the world, he brewed an entire gourd of wine himself, hoping that after he disappeared from the world, there would still be people who would drink this wine and remember him. In the end he told me that this wine gourd was placed under that huge rock. Before I left, I took it with me. Since you want to drink with him, then that's fine too. But don't finish it. I also have a share of this wine. Although Nangongja's last sentence sounded a little stingy, Li Yang actually knew very well in his heart. This kid didn't know how to drink at all. When he said that he wanted him to keep the wine, it was nothing more than a way to remember Banishment. Ah, of course. Since there's such a good wine before me, how can I not drink to my heart's content? Li Yang placed the small green jade gourd against his big mouth and slowly poured out the wine inside. The bright red wine glowed like a blood-red amber under the sunlight. It reminded Nangongja of the time when Banishment drank to his heart's content in front of him. He actually stretched out his hand and said to Li Yang, "Give it to me. I want to have a few mouthfuls too." Li Yang stopped drinking and looked at Nangongja with a grin. He threw the green jade gourd in his hand to Nangongja. Nangongja didn't hesitate and poured the green jade gourd in his hand into his mouth. The wine also entered Nangongja's mouth. It didn't have the pungent and choking feeling of other wines that Nangongja had seen before. Instead it was extremely smooth. Traces of coolness emanated from the wine and quickly spread throughout his mouth. Nangongja drank the wine one mouthful after another. The corners of his eyes involuntarily became a little teary. Banishment wasn't a person who was particularly good at communicating with others. However, Nangongja was completely conquered by Banishment's charm in this short period of time. Therefore, the various emotions hidden in the depths of his heart, under the stimulation of the wine, they were slowly revealed. He sealed the wine gourd in his hand and hung it behind his waist again. Nangongja stood in front of the tombstone that he wrote for Banishment. "I don't know what kind of person I will become after this. Will I be loyal to Woodleaf or will I wander the world? Will I be a good person or a bad person? Now I don't understand it all. Especially after staying in Woodleaf for so many years, I became more and more confused about this world. But it was you who made me feel that this world isn't just filled with deceit and benefits. There were more pure feelings and they would never be worn away. If this world can still be saved, I'm willing to do everything I can." In an instant, the figures of everyone he knew appeared in front of Nangongja. After all, there are more and more things in this world that I cherish. Chapter 95. Just like that, the legendary banishment that had been passed down in people's mouths and recorded in ancient books. Just like that, the last trace of his mark in the human world was erased. A young swordsman carrying the long sword that was treasured by the banishment once again walked the world. Perhaps everyone was like this? Whether it was the legendary banishment or Senju Takuma, who was known as the god of shinobi, or even the sage of the six paths. In the end, his entire life had become a fragment of some people's memories. Or perhaps they had buried their experiences deeply in a pile of old books. When Mishiro woke up, Nangongja was no longer by his side. He must have gone to find Li Yang. Although I've always understood you and I know you have more important things to do. But, if you can be like in my dream and accompany me to grow old, how good would that be? Mishiro muttered to himself, but he also remembered what he had just done. That short, ordinary dream that he yearned for. But in the end, Mishiro could only shake his head. These are things I shouldn't have thought about. As for why he shouldn't have, Mishiro was very clear. He never truly belonged to himself, so how could these beautiful things happen to him? Knock, knock. The door of the hut was knocked a few times. Before Mishiro could speak, Nangongja's voice came from outside the door. Mishiro? Are you awake? I saw that you lit up the light in the room. If you're well rested, let's prepare and go back to the wood leaf. Hearing Nangongja's words, Mishiro hurriedly patted his face with his hands to wake himself up. He immediately said, I'm awake. I'm already awake. Let's go. You don't have to pack anything, Rower has been waiting for you for a long time. It's better if we go back quickly. As she spoke, Mishiro also walked to the door of her room. She opened the door and saw Nangongja standing at the door. Are you okay? Nangongja suddenly asked. Your eyes look red. Haven't you rested enough? If you still want to sleep for a while, that's fine too. We don't lack the time. After hearing Nangongja's question, Mishiro was a little confused. Did his eyes turn red? She quickly walked into the room and looked at her face in the mirror. It was indeed a little red and swollen. Looking at the pillow on the bed in the room, it was also wet. Could it be that when he was dreaming he actually cried out? Mishiro asked himself, but he couldn't come up with an answer for a long time. He could only turn his head and look at Nangongja. I'm fine. Maybe something went into my eye just now. But you were in the room. How could there be? Before Nangongja could finish his sentence, he was pushed out of the room by Mishiro. Don't just stand there like a fool. I still have to pack. We can set off very soon. Just like that, Nangongja was pushed out of the room by Mishiro. After being stunned for a long time, Nangongja said in a daze. Didn't you just say that there's nothing to pack? Women. After a short while, Mishiro also came out of the room with a small bag in her hand. She looked at Nangongja, who was still standing where she pushed Nangongja. She tiptoed and knocked on Nangongja's head. Let's go. Fool, how much longer do you want to wait for Rower Mimi? Touching the place where he was hit, Nangongja was still puzzled as to why this lass had hit him so hard. He could only go along with Mishiro's words. Okay, let's go. Nangongja rolled up his left sleeve, revealing the lion head seal inside. Rio, let's go. He muttered in his heart, and a ball of light rose from his east. It rushed towards Nangongja's place. The lion cub, Arthur, who was guarding the entrance of Nangongja's cave, was also wrapped in the brilliance. Most of the lions here have already seen through the world. They don't want to wade in the muddy waters of the ninja world. It's just that I'm really worried about this little guy. I might as well take him with me. Listening to Rio's words, Nangongja couldn't help but remember the habits of some of the ordinary lions he saw in the ninja world. He secretly complained in his heart, lions are really a lazy species. But then Rio's voice sounded in Nangongja's mind. I'm connected to you mentally, how dare you say this kind of thing when I'm awake? It seems that you still need some lessons. Roar. A huge lion's roar sounded in Nangongja's mind. Although it didn't have any great lethality, Nangongja still felt a little uncomfortable for a while. After all, he was the one who complained about the lions behind their backs, and he also killed Arthur and Rio. Nangongja could only beg Rio for mercy in his mind for a while. After a long time he finally calmed Rio down. Nangongja handed Arthur, who was brought by Rio, to Mishiro, who was standing next to him. He also pulled out the tribulation sword on his back. It was different from the first time when he left the Woodleaf village to find the different space where the lions were. He still needed to draw a huge formation. This time, Nangongja returned to the Woodleaf village because he had a clear space coordinate. Nangongja drew the tribulation sword in the void, and countless natural energy gathered in the place where Nangongja's sword was drawn. After a while, a huge wormhole appeared in front of Nangongja. Let's go. Nangongja stretched out his hand in front of Mishiro. It seemed that he wanted to take Mishiro's hand and walk into the wormhole together. Although this wasn't the first time Mishiro traveled through a wormhole, the deep wormhole still made Mishiro slightly afraid. But when Nangongja stretched out his hand in front of Mishiro, and Mishiro also held Nangongja's hand, all the uneasiness and fear in her heart were dispelled at this moment. Come to think of it, this is the reason why I'm more and more attached to Nangongja, right? Although this man isn't an invincible existence who can fight alone in the ninja world, and even Nangongja was seriously injured in front of me several times. But every time, it was this man who always protected me. Even if I suffered a lot of injuries, he would still do his best to protect Mishiro. Mishiro held Nangongja's hand even more tightly. He stepped into the wormhole together with Nangongja. Chapter 96. In the wormhole, after a short period of darkness, the colorful world once again appeared in front of Nangongja. It was so beautiful that it reminded Nangongja of the fear he felt when he was drifting in the crevice of space. He didn't have the heart to look at the beautiful scenery around him. He only activated the internal force in his body and attracted the surrounding natural energy to gather and condense on Mishiro's body. A thin layer of green light covered Mishiro's body. Mishiro also noticed Nangongja's actions. Small dimples appeared on Mishiro's cheeks. Although Nangongja was nervously looking at the crevice of space at this moment, he was afraid that an accident would happen. Fortunately, there were no accidents during this space travel. Nangongja and Mishiro safely arrived at Woodleaf village. The crevice of space instantly tore open and Nangongja and Mishiro's figures appeared from within. Their hands were tightly intertwined at this moment. Nangongro and Little Linger noticed the abnormality in the courtyard, so they walked out of the room together. Sister Mishiro? Why are you back? Brother he. Nangongro walked out from the corner of the house and only saw Mishiro's figure at first. Thus he began to speak. However, the moment Nangongja's figure entered his sight, he was stunned. Nangongro used her small hands to cover her mouth, afraid that she would cry out. But the tears at the corner of her eyes still seeped out. As for the young Little Linger, it was even more obvious. Little Linger rushed forward and stood on her tiptoes. She used her weak arms to hug Nangongja's waist tightly. Brother Nangong, where did you go? You left for so long. Little Linger missed you so much. I asked Sister Mishiro and Sister Rower where you went, but they didn't tell me. After 3 months, even Sister Mishiro disappeared. Little Linger. Little Linger thought that you all hated Little Linger and didn't want Little Linger anymore. A child's mentality was always fragile. Little Linger lived with Awang for a very long time. When Nangongja and Mishiro brought her away from the village, Awang actually secretly gave Little Linger a letter. He repeatedly asked Little Linger to open the letter after reaching a safe place. Little Linger naturally complied with Awang's request. In the days when Nangongja left, Little Linger began to miss Awang. And from Awang's letter she learned that Awang was dying. For Little Linger, Nangongja, Mishiro and Nangongro were her family after Awang. Little Linger really didn't want to lose any of them. This was also the reason why Little Linger was so emotional at this time. Okay, Little Linger, don't cry. Big brother is back, right? Nangongja touched Little Linger's head and said gently, "En?" At this moment Little Linger seemed to find that the way she hugged Nangongja was a bit ugly, and Mishiro and Nangongro were also staring at her at the moment. This made the little girl's face blush, and she quickly let go of Nangongja's waist. She took a few steps back and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with her small hands. Nangongro, who saw Little Linger had already retreated, also came forward at this moment. This little girl's psychological pressure is really a bit too much recently. Instead of talking about himself, Nangongro first talked about Little Linger. Yes, I also know that you must be feeling bad in your heart. Nangongja also put his hand on Nangongro's head and gently stroked it. All these years, big brother, haven't you always been like this? During the Shinobi World War, it took him nearly a year to get there. I've long since stopped feeling sad over such things. Hearing Nangongro's words, Nangongja also felt a stab of pain in his heart. In order to establish a foothold in Woodleaf village, he ignored Nangongro for a long time. For a long time he didn't accompany Nangongro for a long time. Don't worry, this time I will apply to the Hokage for an indefinite retirement. I will concentrate on accompanying you. Hearing Nangong's words, Nangong's eyes were slightly widened in shock. Big brother, why do you think so? Although after you became a ninja, you didn't have time to accompany me like before. But I can still understand that you like it very much. The life of gratification and revenge is the world that truly belongs to you. After Nangong finished, she stared at Nangong's eyes tightly. She hoped that she could see Nangong's true meaning. She didn't want Nangong to make any decisions that he might regret. Like, if I can choose, I would rather work in the morning and rest in the morning. When I am busy, I will farm, and when I am free, I will drink. I will live a normal life like this. But in this chaotic world, everything is out of my control. I can only force myself to kill people again and again, and violate my bottom line again and again. This time, the Shinobi World War is over. All the promises I made to Rio have been fulfilled, even if I can't live a peaceful life. However, there would be no war for a very, very long time after that. I can also put down the burden on my body. Finally, I can accompany you. Finally, Nangong said his thoughts in front of Nangong. Nangong also looked at Nangong's eyes during the process, fully convinced that Nangong was telling the truth. Since Big Brother has decided, then I will always support any decision you make. Nangong looked at Nangong's eyes and said seriously. Nangong also gently nodded. Well, if there's anything we can talk about it later. Mia is back, no matter how troublesome it is, it will eventually be solved. Roa Mimi has to take care of Kiba Hospital's work and worry about Mia's safety. It must be very hard, why don't we have a good rest first? Mashiro saw that the atmosphere between them was very sad, so he took the opportunity to change the topic. He wanted to let them not be obsessed with those troublesome things. Nangong also understood Mashiro's meaning and nodded. Mashiro is right, everything has been solved. No matter how troublesome it is in the future, we will share it together. Don't think too much about it today. Let's celebrate and have a meal together that we haven't had for a long time. Nangong also nodded and followed Mashiro and Little Linger into the house's kitchen. Not long after, the smell of food floated out of the house. But Nangong was sitting in the living room, his brows slightly knitted together. He was playing with his wood leaf forehead protector in his hand. Chapter 97. In fact, Nangong wasn't very sure that he could reach an agreement with the Three Generations Hokage, who was now in charge of temporarily managing the village, and temporarily give up his identity as a ninja. After all, after the battle between Yondaime and Nine Tails, there was no news about Watergate. And the one who replaced Watergate in Woodleaf was the Three Generations Hokage Yuanfei Sasuke. As an outsider who didn't really enter the decision-making level of Woodleaf Village, Nangong didn't know a lot of things. Although his relationship with Kakashi wasn't bad, a ninja wouldn't reveal some secrets to you just because of a good relationship, right? Early the next morning, Nangong left home alone and went to the Hokage office building under the Shadow Rock. Compared to the other buildings in Woodleaf Village, the office building wasn't very grand. But perhaps because of the people inside, the more powerful the person, the more inexplicable pressure he would feel when he came to the front of the office building. Nangong's heavy mood at the moment also became heavier with the pressure of the office building. Knock knock. Nangong walked to the door of the office building, hesitated for a long time, then stretched out his hand and gently knocked on the ordinary wooden door. It turned out to be Nangong Jounin. The Three Generations Hokage had been lowering his head to deal with a thick pile of documents on the table, and didn't look up to see who came in. But after a long time, no one reported anything to him, so the Three Generations could only look up to see who came. When he looked up, he found that it was Nangong, so he greeted him. Jiraiya told me before that you went to the gap in space, and it seemed that there was something important to deal with. Now it seems that you have dealt with the things you have to deal with? As the Sandaime spoke, an amiable smile appeared on his slightly aged face. Thank you for your concern, Three Generations Sama. I have dealt with the trivial matters. Nangong bowed slightly and said to the Three Generations. There are a lot of things that can't be said. In fact, the Woodleaf Village has been studying space ninjutsu for a long time, and the most famous research result is naturally the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, which was invented by the second Hokage and carried forward by Watergate. The two Hokages were so keen on such space ninjutsu, coupled with the fact that space ninjutsu has extremely great adaptability and great power. It really made one have to think of ways to remove the mysterious veil covering the truth on the face of the mighty power of space. Nangong can tear space cracks and enter the gap between space. For a ninja village, this is really a sweet and delicious cake. If he could get a share of it, that would be the best. Nangongja straightened his slightly bowed body and took a few steps forward, looking at the 3 generations Hokage sitting on the chair. The 3 generations also realized that Nangongja seemed to have something to say, so they looked at the Nangongja standing in front of them with a slightly serious expression. So, I don't know what is Nangong Jonan's plan to come to this old man's office this time? Nangongja didn't say anything, he just took out his ninja headband from his back and put it on the desk of the 3 generations. Oh, I don't understand what you mean. Although the 3 generations said that they didn't understand the meaning of Nangongja, the 3 generations Hokage's body already rose a huge momentum. In a few hidden corners, a faint murderous aura began to exude. Needless to say, it was the aura of the members of the Hokage guards who were responsible for protecting the Hokage. They wanted to warn Nangongja. They can kill Nangongja here at any time. I hope to temporarily give up my identity as a ninja. Nangongja didn't pay attention to the murderous aura exerted on him, he still said lightly. Over the years I have been running around outside. I killed a lot of people for the benefit of the Woodleaf. I did a lot of things against my conscience. I'm not the only one who knows this, Sandame, you should also know this. Every organization, it can be said that this is a common problem for everyone. Whenever something is too dangerous, as long as there is a choice, people will choose to die for those who are more estranged from them. Nangongja is such an estranged person for the Woodleaf. Over the years, at least 70% of the missions done by Nangongja were dangerous assassinations. He was injured again and again, and he was in danger again and again. Nangongja's impression of the Woodleaf village has dropped again and again. The 3 generations also know this. But the 3 generations didn't expect Nangongja to be so straightforward. Since ancient times, when the birds are gone, the hound is cooked. The war between the Woodleaf village and other ninja villages is over, so there will be no huge turmoil. The next thing is naturally to settle the situation. Although I didn't participate in the Battle of the 9 Tails. But occasionally I found a little clue. Nangongja said, his feet began to slowly pace. Obviously he was slowly relaxing. As long as the 3 generations want to continue to listen to him, then his goal is likely to be achieved. Even an outsider like me knows that the Woodleaf Umbu department is divided into 2 departments. One is the Umbu department directly under the Hokage, and the other is the Root department under the Elders' Council. Where did the Root department go during the Battle of the 9 Tails? The 3 generations listened to Nangongja's words, and their aura rose again. These things had been forcefully suppressed by the 3rd generation in the first place. But Nangongja said it directly. Obviously he wanted to rely on this to achieve his goal. But Nangongja didn't continue, instead he began to talk about another thing. Speaking of the Battle of the 9 Tails, where did the savior of the Woodleaf, the 4th Hokage, go? The news that spread only proved that you and the 4th Hokage worked together with the sealing class to seal the 9 Tails. After that, the 3 generations took up the responsibility of the Hokage again. So, the 4th Hokage doesn't care about 2 possibilities. First, he was seriously injured and hasn't recovered yet. But before that, Tsunade Heim came back to the Woodleaf. If even Tsunade Heim can't cure him, the crisis of the 4th Hokage can be imagined. But after saying this, Nangongja shook his head. He overturned his decision again. If the 4th Hokage is seriously injured and dying, then the other ninja villages won't have no news. There have been spies between the 5 major ninja villages. Some things can't be hidden. Since the 4th Hokage is not seriously injured and dying, it can only prove that the 4th Hokage is not in the Woodleaf at the moment. He went out of the village to perform some mission. Chapter 98. The 3 generations watched Nangongja talk in front of them. At first, some of Nangongja's words were listened to by the 3 generations. But the 3 generations didn't really take it to heart. But when it comes to the whereabouts of Yondaime, Nangongja can clearly see that the eyes of the 3 generations are a little different. Although I always knew that Nangong Janin was an intelligent person, I never thought that you would be so smart. You were able to deduce so much information based on some minor details. The 3 generations said and stood up from his seat. The figure of the 3 generations is still very broad, but the faint hunchback in it can't be hidden. The 3 generations is old, this generation of heroes who have experienced the 2nd Shinobi World War and the 3rd Shinobi World War, is now gradually entering the twilight years. Since you have guessed so much, then I won't hide too many things from you. Yondaime is indeed not in Woodleaf Village now, and not only him, but also one of my apprentices, Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, also left the village. They went to investigate something together, although I don't know what drove them to leave Woodleaf at such a turbulent time. But as my apprentices, I still trust them, so I let them leave the village. I'm very clear about your request. It's just a temporary suspension of all their activities as ninjas. It's just a small matter after all, even if the Woodleaf village is short of manpower. With or without you, you won't be able to solve any substantial problems. Moreover, the third King Yenluo paused for a moment. Turning around through the window of the Hokage's office, he looked at the scenery of Woodleaf outside the window. At this moment the Woodleaf is still early in the morning, and a slight mist covered the Woodleaf, making everything a little hazy. I have something for you to do. The three generations didn't continue and instead changed the topic. Since you want to suspend the ninjas' activities, then you can do something for me that should be done. Although the fourth generation head has left the Woodleaf, there are still some people in the Woodleaf. Although the three generations did not say who it was, Nangongja already had some guesses. The fourth generation head's wife and children are still in Woodleaf. There are some people and forces that I don't trust. So, I hope that during your suspension, you can assist my direct dark group to protect the safety of these two people. You are in the light while the dark group is in the dark. He wanted to make sure that nothing would happen to the two of them. Do you understand? Nangongja looked at the three generations. Originally, Nangongja did not intend to agree to the three generations' conditions. But looking at the face of the three generations, he also remembered how Watergate took care of him in the past. Nangongja also nodded slightly. The relationship between the fourth generation and me is not bad, and Shinakushina-sama also has some relationship with me. Since you want me to protect the two of them, then I will naturally not shirk my responsibility. The three generations supported Nangongja's words, and his heart was also relieved. Since the nine tails attacked the village, under the huge pool of Woodleaf, there began to be undercurrents. He will also be constantly involved in it, whether it is Naruto Komatsu or Shinakushina. He may not have much time to protect them in all aspects in the future. It is actually a good idea to let Nangongja, an outsider, take care of them. The three generations walked in front of Nangongja, reached out and picked up the forehead protector that Nangongja just put on the table. It was placed in Nangongja's hand. As long as you are a Woodleaf ninja, you will be a Woodleaf ninja for the rest of your life. You just need to take care of the safety of Shinakushina and her son, and the rest of the troublesome things will naturally be dealt with by me. Nangongja looked at the three generations putting the forehead protector in his hand, and could only put away the forehead protector that he just took out not long ago. He slightly bowed and walked out of the office of the three generations. When Nangongja was about to close the door of the office of the three generations voice sounded in his ears. It's enough to play this kind of trick once. There are many people who are different from me. Anyone who sees through a little of my secrets will not be left alive. There is no need to be cautious in the future. What you should say, what you shouldn't say, weigh it in your heart. The words of the three generations were like a heavy hammer, smashing Nangongja's head fiercely. During this time he has been doing all kinds of training with the banishment in the spiritual space, and slowly his whole person became a bit more straightforward. Just like this conversation with the Sandaime, he had almost thrown out all of his trump cards in one go. Although it can be said that he has the upper hand for a while, but thinking about it carefully. If the three generations is not a person who can patiently listen to what he has to say, then what kind of situation will Nangongja be in now? I've learned I will pay more attention in the future. Nangongja is also open-minded, straightforwardly admitting his shortcomings, and by the way, he also thanked the three generations. As long as you can protect Shinakushina and Naruto well, what I said is not in vain. The three generations waved his hand. It was a dismissal order. Nangongja also walked out of the Hokage's office building. The three generations looked at the figure of Nangongja leaving downstairs, and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Danzo, Uchiha, and that mysterious organization. I don't know how much chaos will happen in the future. I'm old, I can only try my best to ensure that the Woodleaf won't be destroyed in these waves when I'm still alive, but if I'm not here anymore, I can only rely on Watergate, Jiraiya, and other juniors. This chaotic world, when will it truly end? The question of the three generations, he didn't know whether it was for himself, for the Woodleaf, for the next generation of ninjas, or for this world. The complex mood of the three generations, Nangongja can't understand. Nangongja's mood at the moment is really good. Before coming to the three generations, he had already planned to hand over some information about the realm and more, but he didn't expect it to be so smooth. Although it didn't achieve the greatest effect he had expected, it was still not bad. Nangongja felt very satisfied at the moment, and even his steps were a little cheerful. He only felt the wind under his feet, and he wanted to go home and tell Nangong Ro the good news. But the undercurrent of the wood leaf is aimed at everyone who lives in the wood leaf. Nangongja wants to get out, can he really do it? Chapter 99. Isn't this Nangong Jun? Nangongja was walking home when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Turning his head, he saw Yechue, who was wearing casual clothes, standing behind him. When he and his sister first came to Woodleaf Village, they received a lot of care from Yechue. But since Yechue got married, Nangongja didn't see Yechue much. In addition, all kinds of things have been bothering him during this period of time. Nangongja didn't have much time to visit those friends of the past. Speaking of which, Nangongja finally got such a chance to be relatively free. It's also a good choice to visit those who helped him in the past, isn't it? Yabuki? Are you out to buy groceries? Nangongja looked at Yechue and greeted her. Then he saw the small basket in Yechue's hand, so he asked casually. Yes, after I asked my husband to take care of Xiaoying. I came out to get some fresh air and buy groceries. After all these years, fine lines appeared on Yechue's face. But the fine lines couldn't hide the bright color of happiness on her face. Speaking of which, I often see Ro, recently. As for you, I don't know where you went. Yechue said with a look of disdain on her face. You ninjas always don't go home. You don't know my husband, Then. Yechue and Nangongja scolded Haruno Chunin for almost 10 minutes. But are you sure this isn't a flash bomb? Nangongja felt that his eyes were about to be blinded by the flash. I still have something to find Ro, how about? Nangongja finally found an opportunity to take advantage of Ye's tiredness. He casually made up a reason to not be blinded by Yechue's flash bomb. Okay, then we'll talk at night. Yechue smiled and agreed. But Nangongja felt that something was wrong. After all, when did the two of us really meet at night? As if seeing the doubt in Nangongja's eyes, Yechue immediately said, Didn't little sister Rower tell you? Yesterday little sister Rower invited us to your house. She said that you haven't been back for too long. It's not easy to come back, so I decided to call some old friends over to celebrate. Nangongja was dumbfounded when he heard that. She was indeed his sister. How could these kinds of things be linked together? How could that be? I was just afraid that you would forget, Yabuki. So I'm just reminding you tactfully? Nangongja forced himself to say this in order to save some face for himself. But Yechue and Nangongja had known each other for a long time, so such a small thing could naturally be seen. You're still pretending with me. Isn't it just little sister Rower hiding it from you? Yechue knocked on Nangongja's head, but then she held her chin and whispered slightly, Little sister Rower didn't tell you, is it a surprise? Aya, if I say it like this, will little sister Rower blame me? Looking at Yechue who was whispering in front of him, Nangongja was speechless for a moment. Please, I'm a ninja. Although I'm not a traditional ninja who practices chakra, I'm still very smart. Even if you whisper, I can still hear you, okay? It's okay. Ro will definitely not be obedient to you, Yabuki. Nangongja comforted Yechue who was standing in front of him. Yechue nodded slightly, indicating that she thought so too. But Nangongja's next sentence made Yechue go crazy. After all, when she told you, Yabuki, she had to be prepared for you to leak it to me. After listening to Nangongja's words, Yechue instantly raised the basket in her hand and threw it at Nangongja. Meanwhile, Nangongja was also flustered as he caught the basket that Yabo had thrown at him. You really haven't changed at all. You've grown a lot, but your personality is still so bad. Yechue said, but there was no anger in her eyes. Instead, there was a little bit of nostalgia. At that time she was very young and Nangongja was just a little kid. That was how they joked around with each other. How long had it been, and the young boy of the past had become a handsome young man. And she was already a wife and even the mother of a child. Time really flies. Yechue couldn't help but sigh. Although time has changed, some things will not change. The feelings between people, no matter how time washes away, will still stay deep in everyone's heart. Nangongja seemed to see that Yechue was a little sad, so he walked forward and handed the basket in his hand to Yechue. He patted the shoulder of the little sister who was originally taller than him. I didn't expect such words to come out of your mouth at all. After listening to Nangongja's words, Yechue raised her head and looked at Nangongja who was standing beside her with a little surprise. I say, what kind of image do I have in front of you? Nangongja said with a little embarrassment. You. In my eyes, you are trying your best to pretend to be a mature and astute person, but you can't let go of your mental cleanliness at all. He's a very, very tired person. Yechue said, but Nangongzhi, who was standing next to her, was a little stunned. After being stunned for a long time, he could only shake his head and laugh at himself. I didn't expect that Yabuki could see through me so much. It seems that a person like me is really not suitable to be a real ninja. Even Yabuki can easily see through me. Yechue was a little indifferent, shook her head and wanted to rub Nangongzhi's head like before. But she found that she was a little short, so she could only tiptoe slightly and try to reach out and touch Nangongzhi's head. What's wrong with it? A qualified ninja means that he will have some shortcomings in human nature. Being a complete person was much better than being a complete tool, right? If I can choose, I would rather let Sakura follow a master like you. Nangongzhi hasn't been touched for a long time. When he was touched by Yechue, he was a little shy, but Yechue's words went into Nangongzhi's heart. Indeed, there are many excellent ninjas among the people Nangongzhi came in contact with. However, Nangongzhi always felt that there was something strange about these people. Listening to Yechue's words, Nangongzhi seemed to have been enlightened. Nangongzhi understood what was going on with these people. Chapter 100. After bidding farewell to Yechue, Nangongzhi was still thinking. It's not only about himself but also about all ninjas in the world. In the written history of the ninja world, most of the time there were large and small wars. Countless ninjas were trained, but they were also killed by the meat grinder of war one after another. After so many years, ninjutsu, about the art of attack, can be said to be flourishing in the ninja world. But what about the people? It's still in a relatively low-level state. It's still a single family farming a few acres of thin land. Nangongzhi once lived in a village under wood leaf for a long time. The farmers there were still facing the yellow soil with their backs to the sky. Their hard work every day might have turned into nothing because of God's displeasure. As for ninjas? Indeed, ninjas can help farmers flatten the land and irrigate crops. But the cost of hiring a ninja is enough for an ordinary family to eat and wear for half a year. How can the poor farmers have so much money to hire ninjas to help them grow crops? Needless to say, most ninjas have bad tempers, and if they don't take care of them well, they may lose their lives. The only people who truly understand the convenience brought to their lives by ninjas are those high-ranking officials, dignitaries and wealthy merchants. Oni-san, why are you standing at the door? Just when Nangongzhi was thinking, a familiar voice came to his ear. Without guessing, it's naturally his sister Nangongro. Looking up again, the door of his home is in front of him. What, are you done with Kiba Hospital? Seeing Nangongro standing behind him, Nangongzhi asked casually. I'm recently in charge of the inpatient department and I just changed shifts. I came back first. By the way, I have something to tell you. Nangongro slightly explained the reason why she came home so early, and somewhat excitedly said to Nangongzhi, You called our old friend to come home, right? Nangongzhi looked at the little girl's appearance and knew what she wanted to say. Ah. The little girl was also a bit confused. She obviously didn't say these things to her brother. How did her brother know? Nangongzhi looked at Nangongro standing in front of him with a slightly dazed look, stretched out his hand and knocked Nangongro's head, and then said, I just saw Yabuki on the way back and chatted for a while. She told me everything. After listening to Nangongzhi's words, Nangongro's face was not surprised, only regret. I knew that I couldn't tell Yabuki so early. If something is known by Yabuki, it won't be hidden for long. If Yu was here, who knows what she would say about these two siblings. The words she said were actually the same. Well, don't say that about Yabuki. Why are you still standing here? Hurry up and come in. Nangongzhi didn't wait for his sister's reaction, and took her hand and walked into his house. You two came back together? Seeing Nangongzhi and Nangongro come back together, Mashiro looked at the two siblings with some surprise. After all, Nangongro is going to work in Kiba Hospital, and Nangongzhi said this morning that he had to go to Hokage's office to do something. The two of them coming home together is indeed a relatively small thing. I just saw brother in a daze at the door, so I came in together. Nangongro said, but then seemed to think of something. Brother, how's the thing you're going to do? Nangongzhi looked at his sister helplessly. After all, this matter is quite troublesome. His sister knows what's going on, but she doesn't care about it, which makes Nangongzhi feel very helpless. Thing? Mashiro actually saw Nangongzhi get up early in the morning, and knew that Nangongzhi must have something important to do. But looking at Nangongzhi's slightly frowned brows, he didn't ask in detail. Since Nangongzhi is now back, he naturally has to ask to satisfy his curiosity. It's nothing. 3 generations has promised me that I can stop my ninja work indefinitely. But they also asked me to help take care of Shina Kushina and her child. Nangong-ro nodded and then said, since Nine Tails attacked the village, Tsunade-sama has cured Sinai-Q-san's injury, but Sinai-Q-san hasn't come to Kiba Hospital to work. I'm also a little worried about Sinai-Q-san since 3 generations asked us to take care of Sinai-Q-san. So naturally it's not good to refuse. Speaking of which, Nangongja turned his head to look at Mishiro. Do you know that Ruru has taken a lot of work for you? Work? Mishiro was also a little confused, and didn't know what Nangongja was talking about. Sure enough, this girl didn't even tell Mishiro to give me a surprise. With the little girl alone, she naturally can't cook so many dishes with so many old friends. In the end, I still have to trouble Mishiro, and the little girl didn't even tell Mishiro this. Isn't it because she's afraid that Mishiro will expose this matter to me? Ah. The little girl was also a little panicked. Mishiro-san, it's like this. Because brother hasn't come back for a long time, this time he will stay at home for a long time. So I thought of inviting all the friends who helped me and my brother to the house to have a meal together. After listening to Nangong-ro's explanation, Mishiro understood what Nangong-ro wanted to do. He felt that it was acceptable, so he nodded. But then he thought of something. When did you arrange it? Let me have time to prepare. Nangong-ro and Shunjia's little faces turned red. Mishiro knew that things were going to be bad. Tonight. Looking at the clock hanging on the wall, Mishiro only felt that he was in a bad mood. According to Nangongja and Nangong-ro's meaning, there will be a lot of people coming. But now it's only 7 or 8 hours until dinner time. The preparation was a little rushed. After all, most Japanese people have a system of sharing food when they eat. Everyone has their own table. In this way the preparation will be very cumbersome. Okay, there's still some time. I'll help too. Nangongja rubbed his sister's head, trying to cheer her up. Okay, then let's hurry up and prepare together. Nangong-ro nodded and agreed. Although they looked a little bitter, being able to do all kinds of trivial things together was the most precious gift for them, which they would not allow anyone to take away. Chapter 101. The afternoon passed by in a hurry. Little Linger, Mishiro, and Nangong-ro were all busy in the kitchen, and Nangongja was kicked out of the kitchen early. The 3 girls claimed that, the kitchen is a woman's battlefield, how can a boy step in? Then they pushed Nangongja out of the kitchen. Nangongja had no choice but to clean up the living room. He was preparing to entertain the guests, although some of his old friends were invited to come over for dinner. But Nangongja still didn't know exactly how many people his sister invited, so he could only prepare as many things as possible. There were too many people coming and it was too late to prepare. Coincidentally, Nangongja had just finished cleaning up the living room when his doorbell rang. Left with no choice, Nangongja walked to the door and opened it. He wanted to see who had arrived so early. Nangong-jun. A slightly short figure stood in front of Nangongja's door. The silver-gray hair made Nangongja recognize him instantly. So Ruru also invited you? I was still wondering who was the first one to come here. Nangongja scratched his head and let Kakashi enter the house first. Sorry to bother you. Kakashi entered the room and saw the 3 girls busy in the kitchen. He greeted them by the way. What? It turned out to be you, little pervert. Little Linger looked back at the person who came in and found that it was Kakashi. His expression became a little impatient and he even started to curse. Pervert. Nangongja looked at the 2 of them with some doubts. Although Nangongja knew that Jiraiya had given some of his indescribable novels to Kakashi, he didn't know what the specific situation was. After all, in Nangongja's impression, Kakashi was generally a very cold person. He really couldn't relate to the word pervert. Onia-san, you don't know, this guy once slept in a tree near our house. Then, because he made a strange sound when he slept, Little Linger went to see what happened. She found that his saliva was dripping to the ground. There was also a book called Heaven on the ground. I knew it wasn't a good thing just by looking at the cover. How can a person who reads this kind of book be a good guy? Little Linger seemed to think that Nangongja didn't know about these things, so she ran to the front and hugged Nangongja's arm. By the way, she looked at Kakashi, who was standing in front of her, with a look of contempt. And Kakashi was probably still young, and that kind of thick-skinned face hasn't been fully developed yet. For a moment he was stared at by Little Linger and Nangongja, and his face turned red and he became shy. Okay, Little Linger, can't you see that Kakashi Onii-san is shy? A good child can't always hold on to other people's bad points and tell others as a joke. Although Nangongja also felt that Kakashi was so young, and it was a bit inappropriate for him to read that kind of indescribable book, But after all, Kakashi still had his master, advisor, and even ancestor. It wasn't his turn to educate the people of the Hokage clan. He touched Little Linger's head. He stopped Little Linger from continuing. Well, Little Linger will listen to Oniai-san. Since Oniai-san doesn't want Little Linger to say anything, Little Linger will go to the kitchen to help Oniai-san. Little Linger also knew that what she said was a bit too much, so she pouted and ran to the kitchen. Seeing that Little Linger has gone to the kitchen, Nangongja also sat together with Kakashi in the living room. Casually he poured a cup of tea for Kakashi. Wisps of smoke floated from the tea, and the fragrance of the tea spread in the living room. Try it, this is the tea I brought back from the land of hot water. I heard that it is very famous in the ninja world. After drinking it for so long there is not much left. Nangongja pushed the teacup and put it in front of Kakashi. Out of politeness, Kakashi wanted to take the teacup with both hands. But he suddenly found that the teacup connected to Nangongja's hand was very hot at the moment. It was as if he put his hand into the fire. Kakashi already understood that Nangongja wanted to deliberately test him, so he mobilized chakra. It was used to resist the internal force that Nangongja integrated into the teacup. However, after a strand of chakra was injected, it was like a mud dragon entering the sea, disappearing without a trace in an instant, without any effect at all. Kakashi also didn't believe it and poured more and more chakra into the cup. The amount of chakra was mobilized, and even the slightly dissipated chakra formed a thin layer of blue mist that shrouded Kakashi's body. As more and more chakra was injected, the hot tea in the cup began to boil again. Slowly, Kakashi seemed to feel that he couldn't do it. He withdrew his chakra, lowered his head, and looked at Nangongja, who was sitting opposite him with a depressed mood. When you first entered the village, you and I were evenly matched. But I didn't expect that in just a few years, you have left me so far behind. Let's say, I lost. Looking at Kakashi, who bowed his head and admitted defeat, Nangongja's face didn't have the slightest trace of joy. Instead, there was a kind of heavy feeling. I heard that you gave up Kenjutsu and went to practice ninjutsu instead? Nangongja didn't discuss the contest with Kakashi. Instead, he talked to Kakashi about some rumors and would leave. Yes, I have a reason to specialize in ninjutsu. Kakashi stretched out his hand and touched his forehead-covered eye. The other eye was filled with sadness. Naive. Nangongja listened to Kakashi's words, and in an instant, the anger in his heart was aroused. I know how good your relationship with Obito was, and I also know how Obito felt when he gave his eye to you. I thought that after such a long time, you should have thought it through. But the result? You are still sinking deeper and deeper. Indeed, the Sharingan has many conveniences. But is the Kenjutsu passed down by White Fang not powerful? You missed the friend who died in front of you, then. What about White Fang-san? Nangongja said louder and louder, and in the end he even stood up. His voice even alarmed the three girls who were cooking in the kitchen. But the three girls just hid behind the kitchen door and quietly looked at Nangongja, who was scolding Kakashi. Such an angry and emotional Nangongja. They haven't seen Nangongja for a long time. Even Little Linger's body trembled a little when she looked at him. Chapter 102. Kakashi looked at Nangongja, who was standing in front of him, who seemed to be really angry. For a while, he began to have some inexplicable emotions in his heart. So what? What qualifications do you have to judge my choice? Often quarrels are like this. When one person loses control of his emotions, it will lead to the other person's emotional explosion. After the two people finished their fierce words, they looked at each other. In silence, Nangongja finally opened his mouth to stop the two people from looking at each other. No matter what, you have to remember. You don't only represent yourself, but also the entire Hatake family and your father's glory. You can give up swordsmanship, you can also give up a lot of things. However, you must remember that whatever you do, you must not let Senior White Fang's spirit in heaven feel ashamed. Nangongja looked at Kakashi's eyes and said very solemnly. Kakashi seemed to have calmed down a little at this moment, and sat in his original position. Obito he is dead. Rin is also dead. Father is also dead. I don't even know where my master is now. Kakashi looked up at Nangongja, who was standing in front of him. His eyes were full of sadness. Nangongjun, I am not as strong as you think. Sad news came one after another, bombarding my spirit. Every one of them. Every single one of my mental pillars collapsed just like that. What can I do to make myself better? Whether it was Obito or Rin, for Kakashi, it was self-evident that they were precious. And Watergate, after White Fang's death, for Kakashi, he was like a teacher and a father. Kakashi was a little smaller than Nangongja. Although he had undergone a lot of harsh ninja training since he was a child, Kakashi was still a little younger than Nangongja. But his will was not as strong as many people thought. In Nangongja's view, Kakashi was now overly addicted to pain. If this continued, even if he didn't become a cripple, he would also do a lot of things that would make people close to him sad. Nangongja didn't suddenly stand up and talk to Kakashi on a whim, but he really understood. Kakashi at this moment needed someone to help him vent these negative emotions, so Nangongja decided to stand up and help Kakashi vent his emotions. Nangongja walked to Kakashi's side, and put his hand on Kakashi's shoulder. Under Nangongja's control, a wisp of natural energy slowly flowed into Kakashi's body. After Nangongja's body, natural energy became very gentle at this moment. After entering Kakashi's body, it began to play its role. It detected all kinds of hidden injuries in Kakashi's body, and it slowly healed. During this time you must have pushed yourself a lot. After all, you mainly used Kenjutsu and Taijutsu to fight, and from a Taijutsu ninja to a ninjutsu ninja, you must go through a series of training. In order to complete the transformation faster, you have also undergone a lot of harsh training. Nangongja stretched out his other hand and turned Kakashi's head slightly so that he could look directly at his eyes. Haste makes waste. When one day you really understand these things, but you find that your body has been tortured to the point that it can't bear the burden, will you regret it? In the future, when the cloning ninja Kakashi fought with people, he often used a few ninjutsu, and his whole body would be exhausted. He couldn't fight anymore, although this was not in line with the Sharingan and Hatake family's physique. But there is also a great possibility that it was because Kakashi was too hasty when he completed the ninjutsu transformation, damaging the foundation of his body, causing both his physical fitness and chakra to deteriorate. Nangongja naturally didn't know what would happen in the future, but this kind of thing that destroyed his foundation on the surface. Nangongja could still see that Yondaime and Jiraiya were not here now. The three generations were busy with various trivial things like cleaning up the wood leaf, and these things could only be handled by Nangongja. Kakashi listened to Nangongja's words and didn't know what to say. He just lowered his head and looked at the floor with a pair of dead fish eyes. Whenever you need help, I'll help you. Come to me. Nangongja patted Kakashi's shoulder and walked away. He wanted to give Kakashi some space so that he could think clearly. He walked to the aisle between the door and the house, and a slight evening breeze was blowing. It also made Nangongja's mind a little bit sober. Just when Nangongja's mind was still a little empty, Nangongja heard Yabuki's voice. Yabuki? When did you come? Sorry, I didn't notice. Just now, something was bothering me. At this moment, Yabuki was holding a pink-haired child in her arms, but her eyes kept looking at Kakashi, who was sitting in the living room in a daze. This child is... Nangongja nodded. Yes, this child is White Fang Senpai's son, Hatake Kakashi. Yabuki touched Sakura, who seemed to have fallen asleep in her arms, and there was a little sadness in her eyes. But I pity this child, he has experienced so many things at such a young age. In the year when White Fang Senpai had an accident, this child had to bear a lot of pressure. I didn't understand in the past, but after becoming a mother, I began to understand more and more how difficult it is for a child to leave his parents. Yabuki was talking about Kakashi, but Nangongja remembered that he still had a sister. Those years without parents, he and his sister's difficult survival experience was so clear. Did I say something wrong? Looking at Nangongja's appearance, Yabuki also reacted. Whether it was Nangongja or Nangongro, they were both orphans without parents. Did her words make Nangongja's heart start to feel sad? But Nangongja smiled. It's okay, Yabuki. It's been so long, I've already accepted it. Although some experiences weren't so beautiful, they were still a part of one's life. I can't forget it, but I'm not so restrained. Now, I just want to protect my sister and let her have a better life. Nangongja also reached out and touched the small life in Yabuki's arms. I only hope that these children will not experience so much helplessness and sadness like us. Yabuki also nodded. The boy standing in front of her had grown a lot over the years. Chapter 103. Speaking of which, was I going to make Sakura my apprentice? Nangongja looked at the little girl in Yachue's arms and wanted to change the topic to Yachue, who had a sad expression on her face. You still remember? But in fact, I don't want my child to become a ninja. After all, ninja is too dangerous a profession. Every day I am worried that my husband won't be able to come back in person. When he is on a mission, I often can't sleep well. If I can I really don't want my child to be like her father, always fighting for her life. Yachue looked at Sakura in her arms, and Sakura seemed to feel her mother's gaze. Her closed eyes slowly opened at this moment. Just as she was about to open her mouth and cry twice, she saw her mother looking at her with a strange look. She was so young, but she stretched out her slightly weak little hand and gently placed it on her mother's face, as if she was comforting her mother. I know what you mean, Yabuki. After all, I also understand the sorrow of being a ninja. But although the war has calmed down now, maybe one day it will break out again. Our generation is still alive, and we can do our best to protect the next generation. But once we lose the ability to protect them, are we just going to watch them get bullied? Nangongja said such a cruel fact very seriously, and at the same time, he also offered his own suggestion to Yachue. How about this? When Sakura is about the age, let her come to me. I will teach her some self-defense techniques. Then send her to a ninja school to learn some basic ninja knowledge. I will ask Roro to let Sakura be assigned to Kiba Hospital as much as possible. So you don't have to worry about her facing all kinds of dangers, and at the same time she can have some ability to protect herself. How about it? Yachue looked at Nangongja, and at the same time she carefully thought about Nangongja's suggestion. In fact, Yabuki also knew that it was impossible for her daughter not to become a ninja. Although her husband was usually submissive to her, when it came to the topic of ninjas, he would become extremely stubborn. Moreover, in order to survive in such a world, one must have some ability to protect oneself. Since Nangongja was willing to help him in this way, why not? However, Yachue still decided not to agree so quickly. She still had to seek her husband's approval, right? I'll think about it myself. Once I've made a decision, I'll inform you, Nangongjun. Nangongja also knew that this kind of matter related to his child naturally couldn't be decided so easily, so he didn't say anything. Yachue suddenly stretched out his hand and placed Sakura in front of Nangongja. Help me keep an eye on Sakura. I'll go help little sister Rower and little sister Mishiro make dinner. You men are all like this. You don't know how difficult it is to prepare 3 meals. Nangongja just wanted to explain that it wasn't that he didn't understand, but when he was pushed out of the kitchen. Yachue had already strode into the kitchen, and at the same time, there began to be faint whispers in the kitchen. Nangongja thought that it might be a private conversation between women and girls, so he didn't concentrate on what they were talking about. Instead, he lifted Xiao Ying, who was in his arms, and looked at her carefully. Sakura also looked at the unfamiliar person in front of her. Some of her long hair was not tied up, but floating in front of her. A pair of eyebrows, different from the gentleness in her youth, slowly began to condense a kind of aggressive edge. Sakura, who was still a little vague, reached out her small hand again. She grabbed a strand of hair floating in front of Nangongja's forehead and pulled it, as if she wanted to see why this person's hair was so different from her own. It was so black. The young Sakura didn't have much strength, so she didn't hurt Nangongja. Instead, it made Nangongja feel that the child in front of him was very cute. You like to torment people at such a young age. When you grow up, I don't know how many people will be tormented by you. Although the words were not pleasant to hear, Nangongja still had a smile on his face. He directly sat in the courtyard's corridor and put Sakura on his lap. He slowly teased the child. Time passed just like that. Nangongja played with Sakura on his lap. The child's unique laughter echoed in the somewhat empty courtyard. It seemed that everything was infected by the child's laughter. A gentle breeze blew gently. Little Birdie also kept showing off her singing voice. Suddenly, Nangongja felt that someone was standing next to him, so he turned his head and saw that his sister was already standing next to him. I thought that you were the kind of person who didn't like children. I didn't expect you to have so much fun with Sakura. Nangong-ro pouted her small mouth and pointed at Sakura's forehead as if she was complaining. Every time I carry this child, she will make a lot of noise. But in the end, she has so much fun with you. You're so young, but you already know the difference between a boy and a girl? Nangongja knew that his sister was deliberately teasing, but he still played along with his sister's words. Maybe that's true. After all, I'm quite handsome. Don't you think so, Sakura? As he spoke, Nangongja carried Sakura, who was sitting on his lap. And Sakura was very cooperative. Yeah. As if answering Nangongja's question, she waved her small hands happily. Nangongja raised his eyebrows and looked at his sister standing next to him. It was as if he was saying, see if I'm right. Nangong-ro didn't care about Nangongja's teasing at the moment. She just silently sat next to Nangongja. When we were in the town, the blacksmith uncle passed away when Nine Tails attacked the village. I was the one who saved him and covered him with a white cloth. Nangongja had been wondering why Makoto Hatake from the Hatake family, who had helped him and his sister a lot, wasn't invited by Nangong-ro. At this moment, Nangong-ro told him the reason. Uncle? Fine. Life and death are fated. Since Uncle has passed away, then I'll find a day to give him a bouquet of flowers. It's a blessing to leave this world as soon as possible. I only hope that Uncle can be reincarnated in a more peaceful world. Chapter 104. Let's go. Since you're here, the food must be ready. Let's leave those unhappy things for later. Let's go eat first. Nangongja looked at Nangong-ro, who was sitting next to him, and reached out his hand to scratch his sister's nose. This caused Nangong-ro to be dissatisfied, but it also dispelled the heavy atmosphere from before. Mishiro and Little Linger also came out with a few small tables. On each table there were some exquisite side dishes and rice. Mishiro also specially put a small pot of sake on Nangongja's table. I don't know what you learned during this period of seclusion, but you learned a lot about drinking. Mishiro put the table in front of Nangongja and rolled her eyes at Nangongja. Mishiro was the first person to know Nangongja after he came out of seclusion, so she naturally knew about Nangongja's drinking problem. Although she didn't like Nangongja drinking, she still prepared a small pot of sake for Nangongja. Brother Nangong, guess which dish was made by Little Linger? Little Linger just came out of the kitchen and saw Nangongja, so she clung to Nangongja. At this time, when she saw the dishes in front of Nangongja, she also wanted Nangongja to guess which dish was made by her. Little Linger's pair of small eyes stared at Nangongja, making him a little scared. Okay, let brother see. Nangongja looked at the side dishes on his table. There was a sori, stir-fried vegetables, miso soup and a bowl of rice. None of them were particularly difficult to make. Nangongja really didn't know which one was made by Little Linger, so he pointed at the miso soup. This one? Nangongja looked at Little Linger, but Little Linger didn't seem to be in a good mood. After she snorted, she pouted, which made Nangongja feel a little embarrassed. Okay, brother is just teasing you. You made this stir-fried vegetables, right? Xiaoling Air still had a look of indifference on her face. That little mouth of hers that was curled up even higher at this moment. If it wasn't the miso soup or stir-fried vegetables, then could it be that this sori was made by Little Linger? Nangongja could only quickly point at the sori and say, Little Linger, this should be made by you, right? However, Little Linger got even angrier. There were only these few dishes. In the end, her brother Nangong still didn't get it right. She reached out a pair of small hands, grabbed Nangongja's ears and pulled, Brother, you idiot! You can't even guess it? Nangongja was really helpless. There were only 3 dishes on the table. Didn't he already guess it? If even this was wrong, Nangongja felt helpless. Okay, Little Linger made the rice in front of you. It was Yichue who saw Nangongja being tortured by Little Linger, so she laughed and said. However, Nangongja didn't take the bait. Instead, he opened his mouth and said something that made Little Linger even angrier. White rice is also considered a dish? Suddenly, everyone in the room burst into laughter. Even Sakura, who was in Yichue's arms, giggled at this moment. She even used her small hand to point at Nangongja and Little Linger, who were playing tricks at this moment. Kakashi, who was originally in low spirits, lowered his head to finish the food in front of him. At this moment he also spat out a mouthful of miso soup that he just drank. Seeing everyone laughing, Little Linger felt a little embarrassed. She could only reach out her hand and hit Nangongja's head. Then she ran to her seat and began to finish the food in front of her. On the other hand, Nangongja was still looking at everyone with a dumbfounded expression. It was as if his brain hadn't turned yet, which made people laugh. The dinner passed in a happy atmosphere like this. After saying goodbye to Yichue and Kakashi, Nangongja finally sat in the living room and picked up a miscellaneous book to read. Nangong-ro and Mishiro also sat next to Nangongja after packing up. As for Little Linger? At this moment she didn't have the sulky look from before at all. She happily read the manga published by Woodleaf. In these manga, they are all adapted from some of the well-known ninjas of Konoha, which is also a kind of ideological education, right? Brother Nangong, are all ninjas so powerful? Little Linger held her manga book at this time and went in front of Nangongja. After grabbing the miscellaneous books in Nangongja's hands, she threw them to the ground. Then she extended the manga in her hand in front of Nangongja. Her small hand even pointed at the figure of a ninja who was showing off his might in the manga. Nangongja looked at it carefully. The ninja above seemed to be the founder of Woodleaf, Senju Takuma. The person you are talking about is the first Hokage of Woodleaf, known as the god of ninjutsu, Senju Takuma. Naturally, he is very powerful. At that time, the nine-tailed beasts that wantonly destroyed the ninja world were subdued by Hashirama-sama one by one and distributed to the major ninja villages to balance the strength of all parties. It also allowed the shinobi world to go from the warring states period to the current 5 countries era. When Nangongja explained Senju Takuma to Little Linger, he also explained the history of the ninja world to Little Linger. The more Little Linger listened, the more she didn't understand, and her pair of small eyes began to shine more and more. Oni-san, can I also be a ninja? Nangongja never thought that Little Linger would ask him such a question. After all, in Nangongja's consciousness, the little girl standing in front of him was still a very young girl. Since he can protect her well, why should he let her do such a dangerous job? However, Nangongja remembered what he just said to Yabuki. This era is a chaotic time, since he will grow old one day, then he must make all kinds of preparations for everyone close to him. Since Little Linger is not resistant to becoming a ninja, then why not give Little Linger a chance to choose for herself? You can, but you are already past the age of Kiba Ninja School's enrollment. If you want to go to a ninja school, you may need to study well and then you can go to a grade suitable for your age. Nangongja considered that Little Linger's age is close to 10 years old. For a ninja school that is often 6 or 7 years old, it is too old. So, Oni-san will train you well. If you can't hold on, then don't go to a ninja school. After all, Oni-san doesn't want you to be a ninja, but can only mix in the position of a genin. Do you understand? Chapter 105. Knock knock. There was a clear knock on the door. Nangongja was standing in front of a room. This is the residence of Yondaime Hokage, and also the residence of Shina Kushina and her son Naruto. Who is it? A familiar voice sounded from behind the door, and the door slowly opened a crack. Sinai Q, it's me Nangongja. Nangongja poked his head out of the door and looked at Shina Kushina inside. Nangongja, I'm sorry. The house is a bit messy, I don't know why you are here? He didn't know why, but at this moment Shina Kushina looked full of vigilance, and her eyes were full of fatigue. I recently asked for a long leave from the 3 generations, and during this time the 3 generations asked me to take care of you and Naruto Komatsu. Nangongja tried to make the smile on his face softer, and Shina Kushina seemed to realize that it was inappropriate to let Nangongja stand at the door, so she opened the door wider and let Nangongja enter the room to talk. Nangongja walked into the door and saw the inside of the house. The floor was full of debris and obviously it hasn't been cleaned up for a long time. I'm sorry, I'm a bit tired these days. I didn't tidy up the house properly, I'm sorry. Shina Kushina seemed to feel that she didn't tidy up the house properly, and it was a bit disrespectful to Nangongja. So she quickly explained. It seems that after Yondaime left, your life wasn't so good? Nangongja guessed, and Shina Kushina could only pull the hair on her forehead with her hand and sighed heavily. Since Watergate left Woodleaf, there have been many people hiding in the dark, trying to investigate the situation of Naruto and me. Although I have some strength, I'm still worried that Naruto will be affected by these people. These days the 3 generations sent us some necessities and food. Nangongja also knew that Shina Kushina's situation wasn't good. It's only been half a year since the Nine Tails attacked the village, and as the former Nine Tails column force Shina Kushina, although her identity is confidential as long as one is interested, one can always find clues. What's more, Yondaime sealed the 9 tails in the body of a newborn in front of everyone, and it's not difficult to associate it with Yondaime's newborn child. What's more, Naruto is a person with the Uzumaki clan's physique, which makes people think that the new 9 tails column force is Naruto's head. For the major ninja villages, tailed beasts are a strategic weapon. As long as they can figure out the situation of Woodleaf's tailed beasts, any sacrifice is worth it. Even if the 3 generations sent a large number of direct Umbu to be responsible for the safety of Shina Kushina and Naruto, it's still not enough. In the end, it's still a drop in the bucket. Even if many spies of hostile forces are eliminated every day, there are still some powerful spies that the Umbu can't guard against. This is also one of the reasons why the 3 generations wanted Nangongja to protect Shina Kushina and her son. I know, Sinai Q, if you don't mind, I will take care of you. I can take you and Naruto Komatsu to my place and protect you. 3 generations will arrange a stand-in here to continue to confuse some people with ulterior motives. Although column force is of great importance as long as this period of time is over. Other ninja villages won't have so much energy to invest a lot of manpower and material resources to spy on you. Nangongja talked about the solution he discussed with the 3 generations earlier and wanted to ask for Shina Kushina's opinion. Although the major ninja villages have some speculations about the identity of the Nine Tails column force, such behavior of constantly burying their own spies is unacceptable to the major ninja villages. As long as this storm passed, there wouldn't be such high-intensity snooping behavior anymore. Shina Kushina also understood this, so she nodded, indicating that she has no objection. What's the exact time? Nangongja thought for a while and then said, if possible, now is the best time. I have already greeted the umbu outside, and the stand-in is also ready. I will temporarily place you and Naruto Komatsu in the different space where my summon beast lives, and I will let you come back when you arrive at my house. Okay, then I will go and pack some necessary things. Then I will take Naruto Komatsu with you. Shina Kushina nodded and went to Naruto's room on the 2nd floor of her house. She looked at Naruto, who was still wrapped in swaddling clothes and sleeping soundly. After touching Naruto's head, she turned around and packed her luggage. Nangongja also followed Shina Kushina and saw Yandame-sama's child Naruto. I heard from the 3 generations that Yandame-sama hopes that Naruto can take Sinai-Q's surname, Uzumaki. I think he also hopes that those hostile forces will shift their attention away from Naruto, right? Shina Kushina, who was packing, also trembled at this moment. Yes. In order to protect Naruto, Watergate has also worked very hard. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to find out who was spying on Nine Tails, and even released Nine Tails at that time, Watergate wouldn't have left Woodleaf Village like this. Even the news is intermittent. Shina Kushina said, but a slight sobbing sound came out. During this time, not only the safety of herself and her child was not guaranteed, even her husband was alone outside, which really made Shina Kushina's heart accumulated too much pressure. Nangongja put his hand on Shina Kushina's shoulder. He hoped that he could give Shina Kushina some comfort. You and I both know the strength of Yandame-sama. There may be some people in the entire ninja world who can defeat Yandame-sama, but no one can really kill Yandame-sama. And you and Naruto, after this period of time, will also return to normal. I also hope that Sinai-Q can take good care of yourself and the young Naruto Komatsu. When Yandame-sama returns to the village, he can see a healthy and happy wife and a healthy child, right? Although Nangongja knew that what he was saying now was just his opinion, Nangongja knew that it was only his opinion. But if it can make Shina Kushina's heart can be a little relieved, it's worth it. Don't worry. Shina Kushina stopped the movement of her hand and turned to look at Nangongja standing behind her. After wiping the little tears from the corner of her eyes with her hand, she showed a strong smile. I am Yandame-sama's wife, and I am also a qualified ninja. As long as there is hope in the future, I will never give up easily. Even if the future is dark, I believe that Watergate will find a bright path with me. Chapter 106. Come on. Nangongja looked at the girl in front of him who had become bruised, and still looked at him with a pair of cold eyes. This girl was Little Linger, the one who told Nangongja that she wanted to become a ninja and enter the ninja school. In order to let Little Linger keep up with the learning progress of the ninja school, Nangongja let Nangong-ro teach Little Linger some basic ninja knowledge, and he taught Little Linger taijutsu. Although most ninjas rely on a variety of strange or powerful ninjutsu and genjutsu to attack. But most of the time, in order to save chakra in their body. If they can use taijutsu to solve the problem, they will focus on taijutsu. A ninja who is very good at taijutsu is not necessarily a top ninja, but a top ninja must be a ninja with strong taijutsu. Little Linger wiped her face with her hand, hoping to reduce the dust on her face. But the dirt on her hand made her white and tender face even dirtier. Little Linger didn't protest. From childhood to adulthood, whether it was with her grandfather, Nangongja, or Mashiro, she went to Kagekure. Little Linger was basically protected by the people around her. Although it was a bit exaggerated to say that she didn't do any chores, but it was not far off. Since Nangongja trained her in this way. Little Linger didn't know how many bruises on her body, and how many tears she secretly shed. But Nangongja didn't reduce his strength. Instead, when he found that Little Linger could accept this level of strength, he increased his strength by a bit. Every day Linger would suffer all kinds of injuries of varying degrees. Fortunately, Nangong-ro was a qualified medical ninja, and Nangongja was also very measured. So basically, after a night Little Linger will recover. Then she will suffer the next day's torture. Ha! Little Linger made a soft roar, and her whole body rushed toward Nangongja. She even pulled out a kunai from behind her back with her small hands. This was Nangongji's requirement for Little Linger. She can use any weapon, she can use any means. As long as she can leave a little injury on her body, she won't have to go through this kind of training. Directly to the ninja school. Nangongja will only use taijutsu to fight, and he won't even use internal strength or weapons. But Mishiro, Nangong-ro, and even Shina Kushina felt that Nangongja deliberately didn't want Little Linger to go to the ninja school. After all, although Nangongja hasn't reached the level of a Kage, he is only one step away. Moreover, Nangongja is good at swordsmanship, and his taijutsu is naturally very strong. To let a little girl who hasn't trained for a long time attack Nangongja, and even leave a wound on Nangongja's body. It is simply too difficult a challenge. But Nangongja insisted that Little Linger must be trained like this, and the girls had no way to stop Nangongja. Yabuki, who occasionally came here, saw Nangongja's training method, and from time to time she muttered in her heart whether to let her daughter come to Nangongja to learn. After all, Nangongja didn't go easy on Little Linger, and for her daughter, Yabuki was very distressed. How could she be willing to let Nangongja train like this? After this period of training, Little Linger's speed, strength, flexibility, and other aspects have improved greatly. Soon she arrived in front of Nangongja. Obviously she was holding a kunai in one hand, but she still used a skillful fist technique to practice with Nangongja. Not bad. This set of fist technique was originally summarized by me for Ro-er. But Ro-er doesn't like boxing, so it has been idle. I thought that you might be very suitable for this set of fist technique, so I taught it to you. I didn't expect that in such a short time, you have already learned 3 of it. Both of their fists and feet were clearly clashing, but Nangongja looked like he was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease. He even leisurely to the point where he started to evaluate Little Linger's fist technique. Little Linger is a very proud person. Such behavior is no different from the highest degree of provocation. What's more, these words were said by her favorite brother Nangong, which made Little Linger's heart more angry. She didn't speak, but instead, the fist in her hand became sharper. She had to answer everything Nangongja said with every blow. Nangongja also secretly nodded. A person is not afraid of their own negative emotions. What is afraid is that a person will be affected by their own emotions and be implicated. Whether it is anger or injustice, the right way to vent it can increase a person's combat power. The two of them have exchanged dozens of blows, and slowly Little Linger fell into a disadvantage. After all, Little Linger is still very young, and her physical fitness has not really reached the point where it can be compared to an adult. The speed and strength of the punches kept decreasing, and the fist technique began to become a little messy. Soon after, a huge flaw appeared in Ling Er's defense. Her left abdomen did not defend against Nangongja's attack, and Nangongja's palm hit her left abdomen. She instantly lost her balance and fell back. But Nangongja has no intention of stopping. He stretched out one hand and grabbed Little Linger's arm, and the other hand supported Little Linger's waist. He threw Little Linger in his hand to the ground behind him. This time is still considered. Nangongja knew that Little Linger has no more strength to fight, so he withdrew his strength. He was ready to teach Little Linger a good lesson so that she can understand the strengths and weaknesses of this training. But before he finished his sentence, a kunai flew towards Nangongja's face. But the kunai's flight path was too simple for Nangongja, so Nangongja easily caught the kunai in his hand. This move is not bad. Nangongja looked at the kunai in his hand and even fiddled with it a few times. However, the unresigned Ling Linger, who was sitting opposite him, had a strange smirk on her face. Brother Nangong, there is something even better. Just as Little Linger spoke, Nangongja found a shallow wound on his ankle, and a very thin shuriken was inserted into the tree trunk behind him. I've never intended to defeat you in a direct confrontation, big brother. All you ask of me is to leave a wound on your body. No matter how shallow, no matter how small it is, it's fine. Little Linger's face showed a bright smile. It was obvious that Ling Er did not completely exhaust her stamina during the face-to-face training. Instead, she had left a little bit of it. After Nangongja relaxed a little, Little Linger threw a kunai at Nangongja's face. She distracted Nangongja, and at the same time her other hand secretly grabbed the specially made shuriken and threw it towards Nangongja's ankle. Because the wound was very small, Nangongja only paid attention to Little Linger and did not feel anything. Nangongja suddenly felt that he had been through a lot, and now he suddenly capsized in front of Little Linger. He felt very uncomfortable. His bitter face naturally made the few girls watching from the side clap and cheer. Chapter 107. It seems that you have miscalculated. You didn't really intend to let Linger go to the ninja school to study. But you were tricked by little Linger. This time you have to fulfill your promise. Mishiro walked to Nangongja's side and put her little hand on Nangongja's shoulder. She said half-jokingly. But Nangongja shook his head and looked at Mishiro beside him. He said with a smile, "Do you think little Linger can really hide from me so easily?" After saying that, he left without looking back, leaving Mishiro standing there in a daze. Indeed, little Linger left a shallow wound on Nangongja's body with a sneak attack. Naturally, it was extremely delicate. Fortunately, little Linger was quick-witted enough to think of such a trick. However, Nangongja wasn't just a theoretical ninja who worked behind closed doors. He was a real fierce man who killed his way out of the battlefield with his sword and spear. On the battlefield, both sides would attack and defend, and all kinds of dirty tricks would emerge one after another. How could Nangongja fall for such a shallow trap? Mishiro thought for a moment and looked at Nangongja, who had walked a little further away. For a moment, she felt that the boy she had known for a long time became more and more thoughtful. Then she thought about herself and couldn't help but shake her head. Everything in the world is like this. If you don't let others down, you let yourself down. In the end, it's just another sad person in the world. At this moment, Nangongja was mumbling something that made people scratch their heads. It seems like it's time to find something to do. In fact, if an ordinary person wanted to enter the ninja school, they would have to go through all kinds of strict selections. Only those who had a certain amount of aptitude to become a ninja could enter the ninja school. Especially for transfer students like little Linger, the requirements were naturally stricter. But with an elite jonin like Nangongja as a guarantor, all the problems were easily solved. In order for little Linger to have an official Woodleaf household register, Nangongja also added little Linger to his household register, using the name Nangongling to register. Little Linger didn't object. Instead, she was happy after hearing the news. She leaned on Nangongja's face and kissed him fiercely. Nangong Ro and Zhen Bai, who were watching from the side, were slightly jealous. In the blink of an eye, little Linger had been studying in the ninja school for almost a week. Little Linger thought that everyone in the ninja school should be a qualified ninja. At least, they wouldn't be inferior to her after being trained by Nangongja. As a result, little Linger quickly discovered the truth of the matter. Looking around at his class, there were 7 or 8 students lying on their desks and sleeping soundly. There were also many people who secretly put some magazines under the textbook, holding back the smile on their face with a serious face. There was even a more outrageous one who put a makeup box on the table in front of her. Unhurriedly, she held a variety of brushes and applied a variety of powders, creams, and makeup to her face to her heart's content. If it weren't for the fact that I'm a student here, I wouldn't have believed anyone who told me that the students of the Ninja Academy are lazy. On the podium, a teacher with thick glasses that looked like the bottom of a glass bottle was drawing various complicated and trivial physics problems on the blackboard with great concentration. Not only did he not care that his students were busy with their own trivial matters at the moment, but he seemed to be completely immersed in the knowledge he was teaching. A variety of formulas sprayed out of the teacher's mouth like bullets. Even Xiaoling felt an irresistible drowsiness welling up in her heart at this moment. Sure enough, every outstanding physics teacher is the world's top hypnotist. The ancients didn't lie to me. Dang dang dang, the melodious bell rang throughout the campus. Like a huge palm suddenly grabbed the mouth of a glass bottle, the teacher immediately turned around, picked up the thick brick-like book on the podium and walked out of the classroom. The students in the classroom at the moment were like seriously ill people who were injected with a cardiac stimulant, and they instantly became excited. The sound of sobbing could only be heard in fear that it would not be able to break through the clouds. Even the birds that were originally perched on the trees in the campus were frightened and flew high. Have you heard? A new mouse came to the school to teach us combat lessons. A girl who was wearing makeup just now turned around and looked at her friend who was sitting next to her. She was clearly very young, but she dressed herself up extremely coquettishly, and talked about the small gossip in the school. The coquettish girl listened to the makeup girl's words, and her face was instantly filled with disdain. Forget it, the person who teaches in the ninja school. If it's not a serious injury on the battlefield that can't continue to be a ninja, then it's those who are not good at fighting. Teaching us combat lessons? I don't know what kind of idiot it is. But the makeup girl shook her head at the moment, trying to deny the rumors girl's words. Yuri Koyuri, you don't know. This teacher is super handsome. Someone seemed to have seen this teacher at the teaching office, and it seems that this teacher is a jonin. He just took a long leave to stay in Woodleaf, hoping to spend more time with his family. After the principal heard about it, he even begged the 3 generations, and this teacher reluctantly agreed. Doesn't he come to school every day, only when he's willing to occasionally teach us a lesson or two? The coquettish girl, Yuri Koyuri, also seemed to be a little energetic at this moment, and her face was filled with expectation. Jonin? It's not that I haven't seen one before, but it's really the first time I saw a Jonin teaching in the ninja school. I don't know what kind of person he is, even the 3 generations can't invite him. The makeup girl also shook her head and then said, I don't know, even if it's Yuri Koyuri, your Uchiha family doesn't have such a character. Yuri Koyuri is actually a member of the Uchiha family. His hair that has always been loose was blown by the wind outside the window, revealing Yuri Koyuri's Uchiha family tattoo printed on his clothes. After listening to the makeup girl's words, Yuri Koyuri suddenly seemed to be angry. A pair of narrow phoenix eyes stared at the girl who has a good relationship with him, and said with a serious and oppressive tone, Some words can't be said casually. Our Uchiha family, is it something a small family like yours can casually comment on? The girl looked at Yuri Koyuri beside her in a daze, and suddenly felt that this person and the Yuri Koyuri she knows are not the same person at all. Even her body was trembling with fear. As for Little Linger? Naturally, she has no interest in the feelings between these 2 girls, but the content of their conversation Little Linger faintly guessed. Chapter 108. Not long after, it was the turn of Little Linger's class to go to the actual combat class. The actual combat class was often held in the open space of the ninja school, and Little Linger's class was no exception. At this moment the youngsters were also extremely excited. Perhaps a new and powerful teacher would be a rare and interesting topic for the children? Although the little ones didn't do anything serious during the theory class, every time during the actual combat class, they would give 120% of their energy. For a ninja, you cannot do well in the exam, you cannot do well in theory, but if your actual combat is bad, then it's really shameful. The actual combat class of the ninja school generally doesn't involve ninjutsu. After all, how much chakra can a group of children who are still in the ninja school? It's just a few low-level D-class ninjutsu, and it's enough to drain their chakra. The future ninjas also stood in line at the moment. Of course there were all kinds of voices. It was so noisy that people's ears were buzzing. Dang dang dang, when the bell rang the little ones lowered their voices a little. At the same time, a person wearing a white bamboo hat with the word fire written on it appeared in front of everyone in a cloud of smoke. Although the little people were lawless, when they saw the leader of the Woodleaf village, the 3 generations Hokage still respectfully shouted together, Greetings, 3 generations Hokage. In fact, the little people also knew that the 3 generations Hokage had to go to such a place. After all, a Jonin who can be regarded as a high-end combat power in the Woodleaf village came to teach in the ninja school, and it was worthy of the attention of the Hokage. The appearance of the Hokage was also a kind of respect for Nangongja. Seeing a group of little people respectfully saluting at the moment, the 3 generations Hokage couldn't help but have a lot of smiles on his face. These days he has dealt with a lot of troublesome things, whether it's light or dark. Indeed, he was a little tired. After all, he was old, and this kind of intrigue really made him a little weak. This time, coming to the Ninja Academy to meet and chat with this group of little people is also a rare opportunity for the 3 generations to relax. Thus, he extended his hands and gestured downwards as a response to the group of little people's greetings. I think the elders in your family have already informed you that today is the first time the ninja school will have an elite Jonin class. This was a creative step for Woodleaf. Every child was the future hope of Woodleaf Village. You are far more important than an old man like me. We will also slowly give more and more excellent resources to Kiba Ninja School and Woodleaf Ninja Hospital. Not only will those who have contributed to the Woodleaf Academy and can no longer go to the battlefield teach in the Woodleaf Academy, but more and more fresh and powerful ninjas will come to Kiba Ninja School to teach you. I believe that in the long run, Konoha will become stronger and stronger, and the tree of Konoha will grow even stronger. This is not only the responsibility of our group of adults, but also the common goal of every child who attends Konoha's Ninja Academy. Looking at the 3 generations Hokage standing on the short podium, the little people below were also sleepy. On the contrary, a group of newspaper and magazine reporters who heard that the 3 generations Hokage was going to speak at the Ninja Academy were standing below at the moment, taking notes and taking photos. There is no way the speech of a person in a high position has a symbolic meaning for everyone. It's not a dispensable speech, not to mention that the Sandaime-sama's goal of supporting Konoha's Ninja Academy and Konoha's Ninja Hospital is indeed a great thing. If it is really implemented, it will also let every ninja family living in Woodleaf enjoy a lot of practical benefits. It is very conducive to stabilizing the situation in Woodleaf, so that the originally turbulent lake will once again return to its original calm. So we believe, this pioneering effort would definitely allow every child to receive the best education. Let every villager get a practical benefit. We will continue to persist. Thank you. The three generations finally finished the long speech and bowed to the audience below. Naturally, everyone warmly applauded. The group of young children also lost their sleepiness when they heard the excited applause from the teachers and reporters next to them. At the same time, they also didn't know why the three generations Hokage enthusiastically applauded with this group of people. Although they didn't understand what the three generations Hokage said for a long time, they didn't say a word about the new teacher. The three generations also slowly walked down the stage in this noisy applause. A young man came over to greet the three generations Hokage. The three generations Hokage shook hands for a while and walked to the stage. Everyone standing below the stage was observing the young man who had just stepped onto the stage. A slightly long hair was casually tied behind the young man's head. A few strands of hair were playfully not tied up, but hanging in front of the forehead, from time to time swayed by the wind. The young man's face was a little thin, but it didn't look weak at all. Instead, it was like a knife. There was a particularly cold feeling emitting from it. And the most embodiment of the young man's temperament that no one can ignore is naturally the young man's pair of eyes. Under the contrast of the sword-like eyebrows, a pair of dark eyes were so obvious. Everyone who was looked at by the young man would subconsciously feel something invading their bodies. An inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of their hearts, causing goosebumps to rise all over their bodies. The tall and thin body stood there. The black robe was blown by the wind from time to time, revealing the bright red lining. On the left arm was a somewhat hollowed-out full-arm armor that has become a little black. In some places that are difficult to wash, some scarlet residue can be seen faintly. On the back of the young man there was a black sword. Although it was swallowed by the scabbard, a wisp of cold air was emitted from the long sword from time to time. I am Nangongja Woodleaf Elite Jonin. In the 3 World Wars I participated in the Sand War, Kumo-Shinobu War, and the Mist War. Completed 23 D-level missions, 56 C-level missions, 64 B-level missions, 132 A-level missions, 13 S-level missions, 7 SS-level missions, and 4 SSS-level missions. When I was in the Sand War I was called Yama by the Sand Ninjas, and since then I have such a nickname. This time, at the invitation of the 3 generations Hokage, I am temporarily guiding the students of the ninja school. That's all. After that, Nangongja bowed and walked down the stage. Little Linger, who was standing below, couldn't help but have a pair of sparkling eyes. Such a person is her family, her brother Nangong. Some other reporters and ninjas heard Nangongja's amazing record and couldn't help but slightly look sideways. This time, is the 3 generations Hokage showing their muscles in disguise? Although the 3 generations Hokage left, there are still such people who listen to the orders of the 3 generations Hokage. Some people who had ulterior motives couldn't help but retract their thoughts. Chapter 109. After all, this is just an introduction meeting for the new teachers of the ninja school. Although Nangongja's amazing resume has indeed dazzled a group of people, in the end, the most important role is still the 3 generations Hokage as the leader of the Woodleaf village. When the 3 generations Hokage left, the bustling crowd became sparse. In addition to the students and teachers who came out of the ninja school, all the unrelated personnel were quickly asked to leave the ninja school. A group of children below is also talking about the 3 generations Hokage and their young but extraordinarily powerful teacher. Hey sensei, do you like a girl? It has to be said that the children of Woodleaf village are precocious. In just a short time, many people have already crowded around Nangongja and asked a variety of questions. Some of the bolder ones have begun to ask a lot of private questions. On the other hand, Nangongja only smiled embarrassedly before he exerted force with his feet and left the dangerous area surrounded by a group of people. He clapped his hands, indicating that his future students can be quiet. Well, we will have a lot of time to continue to get along. There are some private topics, we can talk about it slowly after class. Now we are mainly going to start our actual combat teaching. Seeing that the teacher has spoken, the students below can't say anything more. They just responded in unison, and then began to form 4 neat groups, waiting for their teacher to teach. Very good, everyone can be quiet so quickly, it's not bad. I also have a general understanding of the learning progress and learning attitude of the students. Nangongja nodded, but halfway through his words, he raised his head and glanced at the faces of the children standing in front of him with his eyes. I have to say, you really let me down a little. Nangongja's words set off an uproar in the hearts of the students. Every child who has the qualifications to become a ninja and has been persisting in the ninja school until such a high grade, even if they don't say it, they still have some pride in their hearts. After all, a ninja is a completely different class from ordinary people. It can be said that the difference between a ninja and an ordinary person is like the difference between clouds and mud. Even if you are a poor ninja, you will be more noble than the richest ordinary person in the world. This is the status that strength brings to a ninja. You can deny a ninja's character, you can also despise a ninja's appearance. But you can never ignore the power level of a ninja. Genin who graduated after a year will learn at least 5 D-class ninjutsu under the guidance of their instructors, and even C-class or B-class ninjutsu. Such a genin can at least wipe out a village of hundreds of people through assassination and other means. Teacher, how can you say that? All of us have worked hard to train ourselves, and we are all very capable. You haven't properly tested our actual combat performance and you said such a thing, don't you think it's beneath your status as a teacher? Some of the students have begun to talk about it, and a lot of harsh words were passed to Nangongja's ears. Nangongja looked at the group of children who were defending themselves, and his face hung a bit of a smile. Others don't know Nangongja, but how can little Linger not know Nangongja? This kind of smile was not a kind smile. Every time Nangongja ruthlessly trained himself, such a smile never disappeared from his face. Sure enough, Nangongja quietly looked at the group of children who were talking about it. He didn't have any intention to interrupt. And this approach made the group of ninjas on the opposite side more energetic. All kinds of words became more and more unpleasant to hear. There are even a lot of people who have begun to criticize Nangongja for fabricating his own mission resume. People are often like this. When they meet an existence that far surpasses them in all aspects, they will subconsciously devalue their own existence. Subconsciously, he began to belittle the other party's existence in his own consciousness. Perhaps this was the only way to give himself some psychological comfort and reduce the gap in his heart. If the one who is being belittled doesn't fight back, then it is simply wonderful. It was like pouring a bottle of turpentine on a bonfire. Ordinary things couldn't even extinguish the flames of envy and jealousy in his heart. And what is Nangongja's choice? A strong momentum swept through the entire combat activity area in an instant, as if a storm suddenly hit the land. Countless leaves, petals, and dust were stirred up. It even alarmed some of the students who were in class closer to here, and they opened the classroom window to look here. The group of children standing opposite Nangongja, at this moment, the hair on their bodies stood up, and they didn't even dare to move. They all had a strange feeling at the same time as if a blade was placed on their necks. A kind of coldness from the bottom of their hearts instantly swept through their whole body. You are talking so happily because you want to refute my point of view? Nangongja clearly stimulated such a strong momentum, but at this moment he still looked relaxed. He didn't have the slightest sense of authority that relied on his aura to suppress others. But the more he was like this, the more the group of children below were frightened. Such a person really made one's hair stand on end. Let's not talk about other times for the time being. In the end, how many of you are in class except for the actual combat class? I have quietly observed you when you are in class except for studying, you really do everything. With this kind of attitude, you want to be a ninja who can take charge of everything on their own? Even if you go back and practice for 20,000 years, I don't know if you can guarantee that you can come back with your body intact after going to the battlefield. Nangongja's disdain was felt by everyone present. Naturally, there will be some people who will face Nangongja's momentum and began to defend themselves. Sensei, we are ninjas. Everything depends on actual combat since Sensei thinks that we are not good enough. Then why don't you do a good test instead of blindly speculating about us? Nangongja didn't expect that there would be someone in this group of children who can speak against his momentum. At the beginning, the person who spoke was still intermittent, but slowly the words became more and more fluent. Who are you? I am a bit interested in you. Nangongja looked at the girl who could speak against his momentum and said, I am Yuri Koyuri, Uchiha Yuri Koyuri. Chapter 110. Yuri Koyuri? Indeed, the best way to measure a ninja is to look at his actual combat ability. However, actual combat ability is also a comprehensive product of various abilities, isn't it? Ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu are the best embodiment of a ninja's chakra, physical fitness, and spiritual power. But these three are all painstaking efforts, and only by really spending a lot of time can these things be improved. And everyone's aptitude is different, and there is an upper limit. After reaching the upper limit, what kind of method can be used to improve oneself? I don't know if Yuri Koyuri has considered this. Nangongja said, and also put away his momentum. Many students sat on the ground after losing the pressure of momentum for a moment. Only a few people could barely stand, including Uchiha Yuri Koyuri and Little Linger. Yuri Koyuri also seemed to be asked by Nangongja's question, and instead of taking advantage of this precious time to rest, he seriously thought about it. There are also many students who heard Nangongja's question and carefully thought about it. These questions have not been thought about by these children, and even many parents who only have chunin or ordinary jonin in their families have not thought about it. After all, many ordinary jonins have not reached their upper limit in terms of physical strength, spiritual power, and chakra. And the gap between jonin and kage level is just like this. There is no doubt that some people with good aptitude and talent will learn more ninjutsu and have more chakra, and even many jonins have more chakra than some veteran kage level jonins. But there is a qualitative gap between kage level and jonin level, and as long as a kage level is given enough space and environment, ordinary jonins will not have a good result no matter how many of them come. The reason is that kage level not only increases their physical strength, spiritual power, and chakra to the upper limit, and they also sum up all kinds of combat experience, and explore the most suitable combat method for themselves, and achieve the best effect with the least cost. This is easy to say, but it is actually very difficult to do. Because a jonin, whether it's ninjutsu or taijutsu, has an astronomical amount of reserves. But in a real battle, can you use the most suitable method in a fleeting opportunity? Not to mention others, at least Nangongja can't guarantee that he can fight without making mistakes. After thinking for a long time, Yuri Koyuri said hesitantly, "Sensei, you should be referring to experience?" "That's right. Isn't a reasonable distribution of combat method that can only be done after accumulating a large amount of experience?" Nangongja nodded. "Sure enough, you are very talented. Yes, the limit of limit, the limit of the brain limit, the limit's limit, the limit of the limit. Is the limit to two's limit, the limit's two's. To be honest, the Isats is the. This is also the fundamental reason why when it comes to high-end combat power, except for very special circumstances, some basic and simple ninjutsu can be used to win. At this moment, all the students below also lowered their heads and fell into deep thought, because no one had said these words to them before. Although these words are simple, it is nothing more than pointing out the future path for this group of children. I said that you are disqualified as a ninja. Why is that? Because the easiest experience to learn is the truth in the textbooks in your hands. This is a lesson that countless seniors have written for you, a lesson that has been summarized through countless bloody experiences. But how many of you have really attended these classes and listened to the painstaking efforts of many seniors? How can you not be disqualified? The children lowered their heads and their eyes were a little confused. They began to slowly reflect on their own actions. Nangongja didn't rush them to start the class, because it is more important to understand the truth than the previous class. Since he came here to be a teacher for these children, in Nangongja's heart, these children can be regarded as half of his disciples. The most important thing to teach a person is not to teach him skills, but to teach him how to deal with things. The time passed in the meditation of the crowd, different from the days in other classes, this time they are really thinking seriously. Every person who has the opportunity to become a ninja will never be a stupid person who doesn't know how to be reasonable. Dang, the class is not long, it will be over soon, right? The children also came back to their senses under the urging of the bell, and struggled out of their meditation. Well, if there is anything you want to think about it slowly. No matter what the problem is, you can go to the teacher's office to find the teacher. If you can't find the teacher, ask Nangong Ling, go to the teacher's house to find the teacher. Yuri Koyuri. Nangongja said, and by the way he called the little girl who dared to refute his pressure. Yes, teacher. Obviously, Nangongja's words have slightly convinced the little girl. After Yuri Koyuri bowed slightly, she looked up at her teacher. There is a touch of respect in her eyes that can't be ignored. You will be the class representative of the combat class in the future. I will look for you if there is anything. Nangongja thought about it. This girl is still a moldable talent, so he gave the position of the class representative to this little girl. Yes, thank you, teacher. Yuri Koyuri responded and turned away. Nangongja looked at his group of students, shook his head slightly and disappeared. no one knows where he went. Nangong Ling. Yuri Koyuri suddenly walked to Little Linger and called Little Linger. Oh, what is it, Uchiha? Little Linger didn't quite understand what Yuri Koyuri wanted to do, but she still responded out of politeness. In fact, Little Linger admired this girl who dared to talk back to her brother Nangong. After all, Nangongja's aura was too terrifying. Even Little Linger, who was so close to Nangongja, was faintly afraid. Teacher Nangong, and you are? Yuri Koyuri asked. This is normal. After all, Nangong is not a very popular surname. It can even be said to be a rare surname in Woodleaf. In addition, before Nangongja left, he specifically mentioned Little Linger's name. Doesn't this show that Nangong Ling and I are very close? Brother Nangong is my sworn brother. I also live in Brother Nangong's house. Anyway, it wasn't a secret, so Xiao Ling told him the truth. Nangong teacher doesn't have a disciple. Can I be his disciple? Chapter 111. Disciple? Little Linger heard Yuri Koyuri's words, and she was a little confused for a while. After all, Nangongja was actually a person who didn't like to deal with people, otherwise he wouldn't invite acquaintances to his house for dinner, and there were only a few people. If it was another ninja with Nangongja's strength, he would have various entanglements with various forces, or exchange for an extraordinary status. Unlike Nangongja, who just wanted to get away from all kinds of trouble, and didn't want to do anything and just stayed at home. I think brother won't accept disciples, right? After all, brother doesn't like troublesome things. Xiaoling Air could only smile awkwardly as she spoke with a somewhat complicated mood. Yuri Koyuri looked at Little Linger's appearance, and for a while he didn't know what to say and just nodded gently. He said, "N." There was nothing else to say. Nangongja didn't agree to the request of the ninja school to take a few more classes, and he said that he wanted to leave enough time to perfect his own practice. Whether it was the 3 generations or the ninja school's higher-ups, there was no way to find a suitable reason to persuade Nangongja. After all, whether it was the 3 generations or the ninja school, they didn't have any requirements for how many students Nangongja could take. All they wanted was an attitude and a face. It was enough to let everyone see that the 3 generations and the ninja school's higher-ups could invest a lot of resources and energy to cultivate the next generation, and a ninja like Nangongja was just right. So when the class was over, Nangongja went home. Saying that he wanted to perfect himself wasn't a complete excuse. After all, Nangongja's momentum in the class just now made it clear. A person's body has a limit, and Nangongja is now in a state where he is close to his limit. However, Nangongja's strength had been increasing rapidly over the past few years. Regardless of whether it was swordsmanship or natural energy, they were both broad and profound knowledge. If he wanted to truly master them, he would need a lot more time to settle down. Nangongja is also ready to use this long vacation to calm down and sort out his various fighting skills. Then, I will first sort out the most familiar swordsmanship? Nangongja muttered to himself. At the beginning, Nangongja actually relied on the various swordsmanship essences contained in the god's disaster sword to practice his swordsmanship. It's not bad, it's just that it's too big a step. The essence of swordsmanship is the way to use the sword, the knack of using the sword. However, it lacked all kinds of basic swordsmanship. This was also the reason why Nangongja's swordsmanship was not low, and he even comprehended the profound meaning of sacrifice heart technique when he first arrived in Konoha, but he still had a hard time fighting against Kakashi. Even under the pressure of White Fang's momentum, he was so embarrassed. After that, under the joint teaching of Li Yang and White Fang, Nangongja began to slowly come into contact with some of the basics of swordsmanship. But the basics are best learned when a person is a blank piece of paper. Because only at that time, a person won't have any strange habits to form flaws. Obviously, Nangongja was a little late. Fortunately, when he walked in the ninja world, he didn't meet any opponents who specialize in swordsmanship. At this time, maybe you will ask Nangongja if the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist who didn't practice swordsmanship. The author wants to say that they really didn't practice swordsmanship at all. These people used the swords in their hands as a tool to improve their ninjutsu cultivation, and they didn't really concentrate on swordsmanship. Of course, when Nangongja fought with them, he didn't purely rely on swordsmanship, but more on the magic of internal energy and physical fitness. It's funny to say that when Nangongja really changed some of his bad habits, it was not long ago in Banishment's spiritual space. Banishment, as the creator of God's retribution sword, was an amazing internal energy cultivator, which completely exposed Nangong's small habits that he covered up with internal energy. Banishment didn't care whether Nangongja was pressed for time or not, he just wanted to sharpen Nangongja. How could he let go of such a flaw? But since Nangongja returned to Woodleaf, he really didn't have much time to reflect on himself. After all, there was a big difference between understanding something in the spiritual space and using it in the real world. After returning, he has been busy comforting his family, scheming against 3 generations, and then helping Shinakushina to ensure her safety and training Little Linger. In the end, in order to let Little Linger grow better, 3 generations asked him to be a substitute teacher at the ninja school. These things were really a waste of time and effort, and it was really difficult for Nangongja to have time to practice. Fortunately, everything was finally on the right track. A few days ago, Shinakushina took her child back to her home. Although Nangongja still had to ensure the safety of the mother and child, he didn't have to be worried all day long. As long as he had time, he would go and take a look. Little Linger also went to the ninja school, and she didn't just rely on Nangongja and Nangongro to teach her. Naturally, it was also a relief. Phew. I didn't expect that I would do so many things. Originally, I just wanted to rest, but in the end all kinds of things kept coming. Although Nangongja always knew that as long as a person was in the Jianghu, he was often helpless. But at this moment he still felt very tired. And he didn't know why, but Nangongja always felt that something was going to happen, and he felt a little uneasy. Forget it. When the time comes, there will be a way. No matter what is going to happen, I just need to protect my family and friends. As for the rest, I don't care. So Nangongja began to slowly practice his various swordsmanship in his mind. From the simplest stabbing, poking, picking, cutting, and breaking, it slowly became more and more complicated, with some of the meaning of the fatal 13 swords. All kinds of swordsmanship instantly became murderous. Then Nangongja began to slowly integrate some of the subtleties of the Hatake family swordsmanship that he learned from White Fang into his swordsmanship. Swordsmanship and swordsmanship were somewhat interconnected. Integrating White Fang's swordsmanship into his swordsmanship also provided an overbearing feeling to his swordsmanship. In addition, after Nangongja learned various light and agile swordsmanship in banishment, Nangongja also extracted the essence of it and integrated it into his swordsmanship. In the end, Nangongja deduced such a move. A strange swordsmanship that used murderous intent as the blade, overbearing as the bone, and light as the mind. Well, this is somewhat interesting. Chapter 112. It's a pity that although I have already set the foundation for this set of swordsmanship, I still need more time to perfect it. I don't know when I will be able to perfect such a swordsmanship. Nangongja once again practiced the swordsmanship he had just deduced in his mind, but as expected, he found many flaws. How difficult is it to create a swordsmanship? Not only does it require vision and accumulation, but it also requires more time to polish and perfect it. Among the countless seniors in the shinobi world, there are also people who are good at using swords. But how many swordsmanship routines have been passed down to this day? Although the prosperity of ninjutsu is also a factor that inhibits the development of swordsmanship, it is more because creating a perfect swordsmanship is a very difficult job. If it is for children to practice the basic swordsmanship, Nangongja can create a set of swordsmanship in an afternoon without deducing it. But if it is for his future life, Nangongja can't tolerate the slightest flaw that he can find. Deducing the swordsmanship is extremely exhausting, so he only practiced it twice in his mind. Nangongja felt a dull pain in his temple, and his head became a little dizzy, so he didn't continue to deduce it. He took out the green jade wine pot entrusted to him by the banishment and sat down in the corridor, looking at the flowers and trees in the garden, drinking alone. Time always passes by without giving people time to react. No one can stop the passing of summer and winter. 3 years have passed in a hurry. In the past 3 years, Nangongja has been deducing his swordsmanship. But in recent days the progress is getting slower and slower. His experience and skills are not enough for Nangongja to find more flaws in his swordsmanship. But Nangongja still faintly feels that his swordsmanship is not perfect enough, and needs to continue to deduce. But Nangongja can no longer continue. Not to mention Nangongja, the acquaintances around him have also changed a lot. Miyabuki and Shinakushina have also sent the 3-year-old Naruto and Sakura to Nangongja, hoping that Nangongja can guide these children in taijutsu. Although 3-year-old children can't receive any high-intensity training, they can't extract chakra without restraint. But they can still learn some basic taijutsu and practice hand seals. Even because the children of the ninja world generally develop faster, The children of this period can already use the advantage of young age to train their body's flexibility. As the substitute teacher of the ninja school's actual combat class, Nagongja's educational level is naturally not to be underestimated. Xiao Er's batch of students has successfully graduated this year, and it's time for the final exam, which is the Genin assessment. The class taught by Nangongja performed exceptionally well. Whether it's the actual combat results or the theoretical results, they are a lot better than the other classes. Shina Kushina and Mayabuki are naturally very relieved to let Nangongja train their children. In the afternoon, the door of Nangongja's house was knocked on by two children. "Uncle Nangong, we're here." The children's voices also came at the same time. Naturally, it was the two children Naruto and Sakura. "Uncle Nangong, where did Sister Ling go?" The young Sakura and little Linger have a very good relationship, and little Linger is very happy because she has two children who are similar to her younger brother and sister. So she has always spoiled these two children, so when Sakura comes to Nangongja's house, she always subconsciously looks for little Linger. Little Linger? It seems that she followed their guidance to go out of the village to perform tasks, but it's just cleaning up the garbage or helping to plow the fields. I think she'll be back soon. Nangongja touched Sakura's head, and Sakura also threw herself into Nangongja's arms, with a look of enjoyment. Sakura has always had this kind of attachment to Nangongja, and sometimes she likes to act coquettishly to Nangongja. However, Sakura's parents have a lot of Nangongja, after all, she is their daughter. Being so close to Nangongja is still very jealous. "Uncle, what are we going to learn today?" Unlike Sakura, Naruto is very carefree to talk to Nangongja. Although Yandame-sama has been investigating all kinds of things outside the village, there are still letters sent to Woodleaf from time to time. Naruto naturally knows that his father is Woodleaf's Yandame-sama. But he doesn't seem to like his father very much. After all, Nangongja has been taking care of Shinakushina and her son all these years, and Nangongja also helped with some physical work. During the holidays, Nangongja will also go to Shinakushina's house to visit. Although Naruto has never said it, in his heart, Nangongja is almost like a father. Shinakushina can also see it, but she didn't stop it. A child without a father since childhood can let Nangongja make up for the lack of a father, which is good for Naruto. And the three generations want the relationship between Nangongja and Naruto to be closer. Naruto is Nine Tails' column force, and some ordinary villagers and ninjas may not know about it, but for the Woodleaf's higher-ups, it is not a secret at all. Who knows how many people have been secretly plotting against Naruto. With Nangongja, such a powerful existence in front of him, it also makes it difficult for more people in the dark to reach out. What does Naruto want to learn today? Nangongja smiled and looked at Naruto and asked, "How old is Naruto? How can he have a plan for what he wants to learn?" Biting his finger and thinking for a long time, he didn't come up with anything. But then he saw the disaster sword that Nangongja has been putting in the hall, and he secretly had a plan in his heart. Nangongja is an existence who relies on swordsmanship to move the Woodleaf. Naruto has heard a lot of stories about Nangongja, so he secretly has a plan in his heart. "Uncle, can I learn swordsmanship from you?" Nangongja was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Naruto, who is usually lively, would want to learn swordsmanship from him at this moment. "Uncle Nangong, I want to learn swordsmanship too." Sakura in Nangongja's arms seemed to be tempted by Naruto at this moment. She also said eagerly in Nangongja's arms. Looking at the two children, Nangongja was also thinking in his heart. "Although I'm learning internal strength, I can't let the two children learn from me. But swordsmanship can still be taught. Although I'm still very young, it's a good choice to find a successor, isn't it?" So Nangongja immediately said, "I've been training your hand seals and flexibility these days. I didn't think of teaching you swordsmanship, but since you want to try, it's not impossible. If you want to learn swordsmanship, you have to learn fist techniques first. Only when you know how to control your body's strength can you learn swordsmanship better. As the saying goes, a month with a staff, a year with a saber, a lifetime with a spear, and a treasure sword with you. If you want to learn swordsmanship well, there's still a long way to go." The two children were confused, but they felt that Nangongja's words were very reasonable, so they nodded. Nangongja also had a plan in his heart. Chapter 113. After Nangongja finished speaking, he looked at the confused Naruto and Sakura in front of him. For a moment he felt that it was a little funny, so he shook his head and said, "Why am I telling you this? You won't understand anyway. Watch carefully, I'll show you a set of fist techniques." Watch carefully and try to remember as much as you can. After that, we'll be practicing the fist techniques in the future. As Nangongja spoke, he carried Sakura who was in his arms and put her to the side. Then he walked to the middle of the courtyard. After calming himself down for a while, Nangongja began to move. The fist technique was very simple. It was nothing more than a set of footwork and some basic fist techniques. However, as Nangongja fought, he gradually added more strength. Some of his understanding of the sword also slowly merged into the fist technique. For a moment, regardless of whether it was the sand on the ground or the leaves on the trees, they were all swept up by Nangongja's fist wind. As Nangongja increased his strength, the dust and leaves slowly formed the image of a tiger. Every time Nangongja punched, it was accompanied by the roar of a tiger and the sound of thunder and lightning. It was the image of the tiger and leopard thunder that was formed when Nangongja's physical strength was exerted. Although it was full of sword intent that shrouded the fist technique, it didn't look like a sword. Instead, it looked like a sword embryo. Most of the body's strength was used on the muscles, bones, and it constantly improved the physical quality of the fist technique. In order to make the child more interested in the fist technique, Nangongja fought a little more flamboyantly. At the same time, he deliberately created the image of the tiger and leopard thunder. Even the current Nangongja began to sweat slightly after 3 rounds of fighting. This was the nature of the fist technique. The higher the strength, the stronger the physical quality, and the greater the pressure on the body. This was a boxing technique that Nangongja had developed over the past few years to train his body and maintain his stamina. It could also be considered as a subsidiary product of perfecting his swordsmanship, right? Amazing, amazing. Uncle Nangong played really well. When Sakura saw that Nangongja was done, she clapped and praised Nangongja. Children couldn't understand the essence of this fist technique, but Nangongja's vigorous movements just now were quite a performance. Although Naruto did not speak, his pair of beady eyes were fixed on Nangongja. Needless to say, this kid was eyeing Nangongja's skills. You only know how to make uncle happy. Nangongja walked to Sakura's side, squatted down and rubbed Sakura's baby fat face. The little girl didn't feel anything. Instead, she was still smiling and even enjoyed Nangongja rubbing her face like this. She was like a kitten being stroked on the head with a face full of satisfaction. I'll tell you this first. Although this set of fist technique has a certain attack power, it is very limited. Its greatest function is to temper the muscles and bones. If you really fight with someone and use this set of fist technique, you may suffer a few more hits. Nangongja said and looked at Naruto's face standing next to him. This little guy is a devil incarnate. Although he doesn't bully other children because he is the child of Yondaime Hokage, he also pulled a large group of children to be the king of children. Wood leaf was often tossed by these children all day long. Not only Shinakushina was often asked to talk to the patrolling ninjas, but sometimes even Nangongja was complained about by the ninjas. Now, he warned Naruto in advance, it can be regarded as a little less trouble in the future. As expected by Nangongja and Naruto, the little guy's face became a little uncomfortable when he heard that this set of fist technique can't be used in actual combat. But children are also simple-minded. Just now Nangongja's fist technique looked so powerful. Even if this set of fist technique can't be used, at least it can scare the opponent, right? Seeing that the 2 children had no other opinions, Nangongja patted Sakura and Naruto's small head. Then he said, "Okay, you 2 go to the yard and show me." The 2 children were also obedient, and soon went to the middle of the yard to practice. Sakura has always been very smart. After Nangongja practiced 3 times, although some details were not remembered, the general routine was very clear. From the beginning to the end, although he stumbled a bit, he still managed to finish a set of fist techniques that had a beginning and an end. And Naruto? How to say it? If you put it nicely, he is not very skilled, but if you put it bluntly, he is really a dog's fart. Basically, except for the beginning and ending of the fist technique taught by Nangongja, the middle is simply a mess. There is no sense of Nangongja's fist technique. Even Nangongja, the creator of this fist technique, felt that this set of fist technique is not his at all. Okay, Sakura and Naruto, you can stop for a while. Let me give you some pointers. When you are practicing, there are still some mistakes in your form and strength. Nangongja also walked to the middle of the yard, looked at Sakura and said, "Sakura is not bad. After all, you have only seen it 3 times, but you have already remembered the overall routine. In a while, I will slowly teach you some strength techniques and correct some of your movements." Okay. After Sakura heard Nangongja's evaluation, she was slightly happy. After all, her uncle Nangong praised her. At the same time, she glanced at Naruto, which made Naruto a little unhappy. He quickly ran to Nangong's side and asked eagerly, "Uncle, what about me? What about me? I am so smart, I am definitely much better than Sakura." Nangongja was speechless for a while. "Yes, you are indeed very good, but don't you know where you are good at?" "Yes, Naruto is also very good. This set of boxing is completely beyond the limits of boxing. It is unrestrained and unrestrained. It is indeed very good." As Nangongja spoke, Naruto became more and more happy. He looked at Sakura provocatively. "You see, Uncle also said that I am good. You are a violent woman, you can't compare to me at all." However, when Naruto looked at Sakura, he was not angry at all. Instead, he looked at her with interest. For a moment they did not know what was going on. Nangongja looked at Naruto, who was confused, and chopped Naruto's head with his hand. Naruto shouted that it was painful, but Nangongja did not feel sorry at all. "Naruto, listen to me correct Sakura's movements at the side. Then learn bit by bit. When you are practicing the boxing I taught you, I will slowly teach you the details." Chapter 114. The sun gradually shifted from the east to the middle, and unknowingly, it was already noon. The thin mist in the morning had long been dispersed by the rays of the sun. In the courtyard of Nangongja's house, Sakura was practicing the body refining fist technique that Nangongja had taught her. As for Nangongja, he sat in the corridor and watched Sakura practice the fist technique. From time to time he would give some pointers. Naruto sat beside Nangongja. Learning fist techniques required a certain impression in one's memory before one could practice. After a series of random punches, it would be better to just sit there and watch others practice. "Brother, I'm back." The door opened at the same time, and the two people who walked in were Nangong-ro and Mishiro. In these few years, Mishiro had been quiet for a long time. He actually teamed up with Yachue to open a clothing store. Every day he and Yachue would take turns to look after the store in the morning and afternoon. It could be considered as a form of entertainment for their daily life. Today was the day that Mishiro went to look after the store. It seemed that Nangong-ro had gone to look for Mishiro after returning from the hospital. "Oh, you two little guys are here too. Coincidentally, sister bought a lot of fruits, vegetables, meat and fish. Today sister will show you her skills." Nangong-ro saw the few children and was very happy. She raised the stuffed bag in her hand and said, "The happiness of children was so simple. One meal was enough, wasn't it? That's great. There's good food." Whether it was Sakura or Naruto, they stopped what they were doing and ran to Nangong-ro's side. They surrounded Nangong-ro and chattered about how they learned the fist technique from Nangongja. Nangong-ro did not feel annoyed. Instead, she listened with great interest. When he found out that Naruto's learning wasn't going so smoothly, he even gently patted Naruto's head and urged Naruto to work harder in learning. Nangongja looked at his younger sister. For a moment he looked like an old man. He kept sighing that his younger sister had grown up and was already so good at taking care of people. Nangong-ro, on the other hand, was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She acted coquettishly in front of Nangongja. Nangongja was already 19 years old. Even though Nangong-ro was a few years younger than Nangongja, she was already 16 years old. Woodleaf Village had quite a number of girls who had gotten married at this age, so it was natural for young girls to be shy when such a topic was brought up. "Okay, you two don't need to practice the fist technique anymore. Go help Roa Jejia and Mishiro Jejia and cook together." Nangongja walked to Naruto and Sakura's side. He patted the two children's heads and asked them to help cook. He watched the two children, Nangong-ro and Mishiro, cook together. Nangongja suddenly felt that this kind of life couldn't be better. However, he inadvertently glanced at a shadowy location. He didn't do anything and just went into the room. "Oh no. It seems that I have to quickly report to the Lord. This is already the 5th time this month that Nangongja discovered my location. Although Nangongja's temperament isn't bad, he didn't directly make a move on me. But how could a person called Yama be afraid of killing people?" There was a slight movement in the shadows, but soon there was no sign of it. It was the same as what Nangongja saw, but it still made him feel that something was missing. On a sparsely populated street near Nangongja's house, a person wearing a hooded robe appeared. A white mask with floral patterns was placed on the face of this figure. After a while, the person wearing the mask walked to a large tree in a deserted practice field in Woodleaf Village. He took out a small scroll that was about the size of a thumb, bit his finger, and smeared his blood on the magic array in the scroll. A weak wave of energy was emitted from the scroll. The masked person pressed the scroll in his hand on the tree in front of him. The fluctuation of the scroll and the tree seemed to have some kind of resonance. A wave of ripples spread from the place where the scroll touched the tree, as if the space was distorted. After the masked person looked at his surroundings, he walked into the distorted space. At this moment, Nangongzhe, who was eating, slightly changed his expression, but he quickly adjusted. He continued to chat with Nangongro and Mishiro one sentence at a time. "Sir, you told me to report to you every time I was discovered by Nangongzhe. Today I was discovered again." In the gloomy cave, the masked and robed man was kneeling on the ground with one knee. He respectfully reported to the person in front of him. In front of the masked person there was a seat made of black stone. A cold aura was emitted from the stone seat, proving that the stone seat was not ordinary. On the stone seat, there was a slightly blurry shadow sitting on it. "Oh, it's fine if you're discovered. I originally sent you to let him discover you. Where's the other target?" The shadow's voice was very strange. It was obvious that it had been altered. However, the indifference in the voice could not be hidden even if it was altered. "The target is normal, there are daily reports." The masked person heard the shadow's question and immediately replied. With Nangongzhe's ability, how could he not discover the target's little tricks? However, this target is really out of Danzo's expectations. He actually began to deliberately hide some information. "Let's see if Danzo will go for wool and come home shorn." The shadow laughed and said with a hint of sarcasm. The Danzo that the shadow mentioned was the name of the leader of the Woodleaf Roots, Shimura Danzo. "Then, sir, should I continue to keep an eye on these two targets?" the masked person asked. "No need, Woodleaf Roots are going to be unstable. Who knows, it might even affect Nangongzhe and the other target. If Nangongzhe is really desperate, who knows what he will do. With your ability you're still a bit lacking. You can go back for now. If there's anything else, I'll give you orders directly." The shadow waved his hand, but his tone was somewhat impatient. However, the meaning behind his words was that he was taking pleasure in other people's misfortune and watching a show. The masked person was very tactful at this moment. He did not say anything and retreated. In the empty cave, only the shadow's words were left echoing. Woodleaf Roots are going to do something stupid again. Nangongzhe, since you have the tribulation sword that I wanted to take from you, why don't you show me? Then show me what you've got to gain this sword's recognition. Chapter 115. In another place in the Woodleaf, whether it was the 3 generations of Hokage, the elders of Kiba, or Shimura Danzo who had been hiding in the dark, they all gathered together. Aside from Shimura Danzo, who was sitting calmly in his chair, looking at the 3rd Hokage and Konoha's elders with his one eye, Konoha's elder council. Whether it was the 3 generations of Hokage or the elders, they were all staring at the document in front of them. The document wasn't thick, only 5 or 6 pages. But this was the 3rd time that the 3 generations of Hokage and the elders of Kiba had read it at this moment. Everyone couldn't believe what was described in the document, or everyone didn't want the things in the document to be true. The 3 generations finally put down the document in their hands, and knocked the pipe in their hands on the table. After the pipe was lit, the 3 generations of Hokage didn't even take a puff. Now, there wasn't even a little bit of heat left in the pipe. "This document? Danzo, are you sure it's true?" The 3 generations of Hokage looked at Shimura Danzo, who was sitting opposite him, and his shadow covered most of Danzo's body. It made Danzo look even more gloomy. "This was provided to me by my spy in Uchiha, and I have also sent all the members of Root to investigate the authenticity of this document. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for Root's fatal mistake, this document can almost be 100% verified. Although Root is directly under the command of Shimura Danzo, Root is still the department of the Woodleaf. Some personnel transfers and resource allocation are still recorded in Woodleaf. As long as they check carefully, they can naturally prove that Danzo is telling the truth. Collusion with foreign ninjas, hidden strategic resources, annexation of weak clans, we are very clear about these things, and if one of them is committed, it will be an absolutely unforgivable death sentence. Uchiha has not been stable since the establishment of Woodleaf. They had even carved out a part of the land for themselves, not allowing any village to plant their power there. We're not the only ones who know this. The Uchiha is also very clear about this." 3 generations stood up from his seat and took out his tobacco pouch. He slowly added more tobacco into his already empty pipe as he spoke slowly. The group of Woodleaf elders and Danzo also secretly nodded. It was undeniable that Uchiha was an important force in Woodleaf. But this kind of power was a double-edged sword. If there was someone who could suppress Uchiha, then Uchiha would be Woodleaf's strongest weapon. In the past, the first Hokage Senju Hashirama and the second Hokage Senju Tobirama were both such geniuses. When the first Hokage and the second Hokage were still alive, Uchiha could only obey the orders of Woodleaf. But now Woodleaf is unstable, and the fourth Hokage went out of the village to investigate the mysterious organization. And my 3 disciples. Alas, they have all left this sad place. I'm already old and I can no longer suppress Uchiha's ambition. He took out a box of matches and the bright flame burned on the tip of the match. 3 generations put the match on the pipe and wanted to light the tobacco, but after several attempts he couldn't light it. Finally, one of 3 generations' personal bodyguards quietly appeared and lit the pipe for 3 generations. The group looked at 3 generations' slightly bent body, and they were all speechless. Since 3 generations took office, his 2 masters, the first Hokage and the second Hokage, had been his goal. Whether it was fighting with other villages or dealing with other things, they were extremely diligent. But now 3 generations is old, and some of the hidden wounds left when he was young have slowly emerged. His strength, which was once considered powerful among the Kage level, has slowly declined. But no one can underestimate 3 generations, because the real strength of 3 generations is his innumerable ninjutsu and grasp of the battle situation. If 3 generations really went all out to fight with any of the current Kage level ninjas, 3 generations will be the one to survive in the end. Tiger Elder is still powerful and Ryuo is still strong. Danzo? 3 generations suddenly called Danzo's name, which made Danzo raise his head and look at the 3 generations. Looking at Danzo's murderous eyes, 3 generations secretly sighed in his heart and said, Uchiha can't be moved, at least not for a while. Danzo was also a little surprised. After all, the file he handed in can be said to have pushed Uchiha to the edge of betrayal. Such a dangerous tumor that can erupt at any time, how can it be left in the Woodleaf? Yuan Fei, do you know what you were talking about? Even when we were young, the second Hokage always told us to use Uchiha if we can, and if we can't, we must eradicate it as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be a disaster sooner or later. Now you actually want to forgive this group of traitors? What's wrong with you? You are old so you have no guts to this point? Danzo said, and his tone gradually became sharper. He directly began to say that 3 generations is a coward. Some of the Umbu who were standing in the dark immediately stood in front of Sandaime, and even pulled out their swords. A person who seemed to be the leader looked at Danzo and said, Danzo, show some respect to Hokage-sama. Some of Danzo's root ninjas also silently pulled out their swords and stood in front of the Umbu. Hokage? If I remember correctly, the current Woodleaf Hokage should be called Minato Watergate, right? As for Yuan Fei, isn't he just a member of the Elders of Kiba? Danzo didn't seem to intend to give 3 generations face, and directly said it bluntly. 3 generations Hokage was originally the result of the Elders of Kiba's discussion without Danzo, and Danzo has always been dissatisfied. But no one thought that Danzo would remove the last layer of cloth between them at this time. How dare you? The sound of swords being unsheathed sounded, whether it was the Umbu or the root ninjas at this moment they all pointed their swords at each other. As long as one person gave the order they would kill each other. Enough. Haven't you made a fool of yourselves enough? Put away your swords for me. 3 generations shouted and a burst of pressure came making everyone feel a little depressed. But, the leader of the Umbu opened his mouth and said 2 words, but 3 generations stared at him. He could only slowly put away his ninja sword, and the Umbu of the Hokage also put away their ninja swords. Sandaime's slightly cloudy eyes stared at Danzo, who was sitting behind many root ninjas with swords in their hands. Chapter 116. Seeing that the atmosphere between the 2 sides has eased slightly, Mito Monitis and Zhuan Shaochun, as the leaders of the Elders of Kiba, also walked between the 2 sides. Mito Monitis was the first to speak. Danzo, tell your men to put away their swords. You're a grown-up, it's too undignified to pull out your swords. Is there anything that can't be discussed? The leader of the root ninja turned his head and looked at Shimura Danzo, who was sitting behind him, as if asking for Danzo's opinion. Danzo also nodded slightly, indicating his men to put away their swords. Seeing that Danzo has no intention to make a move, Zhuan Shaochun also looked at the 3 generations and asked, Yuan Fei, Uchiha has indeed gone too far this time. And Danzo also paid a lot of money to prove this information, so it's natural that he's unwilling to be directly denied by you. Don't take it to heart. The three generations knew that Zhuan Shaochun didn't want them to vent their anger on Danzo, otherwise there will be internal chaos in the Hokage faction. Uchiha is still in the ascendant, it's too irrational to have a conflict with Danzo. So the three generations also nodded, indicating that they know what to do. But, Yuan Fei, since you don't want us to touch Uchiha for the time being, you should give us an explanation. Whether it's the information we have now or the last words left by the second Hokage, it proves that Uchiha is after something big. It's really not good to let them go like this. Although Zhuan Shaochun and Mito Monitis are on the side of the three generations, there are many things that you can't blindly support without any reason. The elders of Kiba were also an important part of Woodleaf's power. The three generations needed to give the elders of Kiba and Root a reasonable explanation. I believe everyone still remembers the incident where Kumo Shinobu village forcibly abducted the daughter of the Hyuga clan's patriarch not too long ago? Three generations suddenly mentioned a major event that happened in the Hyuga clan. At that time, Kumo Shinobu actually sent a small team of ninjas to kidnap the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan. Fortunately, the leader of the Hyuga tribe had found out and risked his life to save his daughter. They did not let the Hyuga race's Kekkei Genkai Byakugan fall into the hands of the Kumo Shinobu village. However, who would have thought that the Kumo Shinobu village would actually cause trouble for them? They wanted Woodleaf to be responsible for the death of the Kumo Shinobu village. In the end, the matter was resolved after a lot of twists and turns. However, it also made Woodleaf pay a lot of resources. They even made contact with the leader of the Hyuga clan's branch family, Hyuga Hizashi. Woodleaf had never suffered such a big loss ever since Woodleaf established the village. A lot of people were angry because of this matter. If it wasn't for the three generations forcibly suppressing this matter, who knows how big of a mess it would have caused. Since Woodleaf established the village, Woodleaf has never lost a war. Woodleaf has always been the one taking advantage. When did it become Woodleaf's turn to lose? However, the incident with Hyuga was indeed a huge loss for Konoha, but I still tried my best to suppress this matter. A lot of people said that I'm old and have lost my fighting spirit. I don't dare to fight with those who want to take advantage of Woodleaf. Three generations looked at Danzo, who was sitting in the shadows. Obviously, he was responding to Danzo's harsh words. Although I don't have many years left to live as long as it's for Woodleaf. Even if I have to fight with the enemy now, I'm willing to give up my old life. When everyone heard the words of the Sandaime, they secretly nodded their heads. As the first Hokage and the second Hokage's disciple, who has the deepest feelings for Konoha? Without a doubt, three generations was considered. This stubborn old man indeed had the courage and strength to fight for Woodleaf. But I can fight with my life. I can kill anyone who dares to invade Woodleaf. After that, fourth generation is not in the village right now. My three disciples are also not in the village for various reasons. Now, there are only a few people who can protect Konoha. We can't afford to gamble. We can't gamble. Sandaime took a deep puff from the tobacco pipe in his hand, giving the others some time to think about the cause and effect of the situation. After a while, three generations continued. Woodleaf's main strength is actually the Naruto clan, Uchiha Hyuga, and many small and medium-sized clans. The Hyuga have quietly withdrawn part of their strength because of Kumo Shinobu. It's not the Hyuga's fault. After all, as a member of Woodleaf, we didn't do our duty. It's normal for them to withdraw part of their strength to protect themselves. So now Woodleaf's main strength is only a few clans. Once we go to war with the Uchiha, let's not talk about whether we can completely destroy the Uchiha. How much of our strength will be consumed in the war? In the third war, Woodleaf can be said to have a big advantage. The other four villages have suffered different degrees of losses. How can they not want to bite off a piece of meat from Woodleaf? We can destroy the Uchiha because of a moment of anger, but can we destroy Woodleaf's future because of a moment of anger? Finally, Sandaime-sama revealed his reasons. Everyone present is Woodleaf's top management, none of them are fools who can be cajoled at will. Woodleaf is now compared to the overall level of the ninja world. There's an old saying, the tallest tree in the forest. None of the other forces will give up any opportunity to weaken Konoha's power. Once Woodleaf has internal strife, they will even cut off their own arm to destroy the Uchiha clan. How can the other ninja villages not have the idea of Woodleaf? Indeed, Yuan Fei's words are reasonable. We can deal with the Uchiha clan, but if we really go to fight the Uchiha head-on, we can't afford the losses caused. After a long silence, Mito Monitis, as the representative of the elders of Kiba, expressed his opinion. Then a group of woodleaf elders followed. Yes, yes. Yuan Fei's words are reasonable. Indeed, the Uchiha can't make a move now. Danzo, you have to focus on the overall situation. A group of people began to talk like this. Danzo also looked at this group of woodleaf elders with a dark face. Before this meeting began, Danzo had already bribed all the parties in advance. He roped in a lot of woodleaf elders to support his proposal, and these people agreed one by one. But now they directly jumped to support the Three Generations camp. It's a bit too shameless. Yuan Fei, it's good that you know in your heart, don't raise a tiger in the end. It will cause more losses. After saying that, Danzo waved the sleeve of his good hand. He walked away with an angry face. Chapter 117. Thump thump thump. In the empty and deep tunnel, a group of people was walking slowly. The leader was the woodleaf root leader Shimura Danzo, who was struggling with the Three Generations just now. And this is the secret passage leading to the woodleaf root base. After walking for a long time, they finally saw the end of the dark passage. It was a huge underground space, and a road was circling the walls of the underground space. And every once in a while, a door would appear, and there was a nameplate on it to indicate where the door leads. Danzo didn't pay attention to the ninjas who occasionally passed by along the way and went straight to his office at the end of the road. Danzo put aside the crutch in his hand, and a follower very cleverly took off the white Haori coat on his body. Danzo sat in his seat, and the ninjas who followed behind Danzo also stood in front of Danzo's desk, waiting for Danzo's orders. This time, everyone did a good job. We were able to explore the secrets of the Uchiha, and at the same time, we were able to verify the authenticity of the information. Danzo looked at the people standing in front of him, and his usually tense face slightly relaxed, and there was even a trace of gratification on his face. The ninjas heard Danzo's praise and felt warm in their hearts. We didn't achieve Sama's goal, we are really ashamed. The leader of the ninjas suddenly knelt on the ground and apologized to Danzo. But Danzo shook his head. You are not wrong, I have too many enemies. Even if there is accurate information, there are still people who want to go against me. I don't blame you, you can go down to the reward and punishment office to receive your own rewards. Sama? Not only the leader of the ninjas but the rest of the ninjas also knelt on the ground at this moment. Obviously they were a little emotional. Okay, we are all people who have experienced the ups and downs of life. It's a bit shameful to act like this. You can leave now. Don't take this setback to heart. Our route exists to protect the wood leaf in the dark. As long as you complete our mission seriously, that will be enough. Dealing with the higher-ups is my business. Even if I fail, it's my fault. Danzo waved his hand and dismissed the root ninjas. It has to be said that Danzo can lead such a group of root ninjas. His charisma was unquestionable. Danzo, who took the initiative to take responsibility for his mistakes, was indeed worthy of Root's ninjas to do their best for him. When all the ninjas left Danzo's office, Danzo waved to a corner of his room. A ninja walked out from the shadows and half knelt in front of Danzo. Lord Danzo, what can I do for you? Danzo touched his scarred chin, thought for a while and said, How's the progress on Sky's side? In the past 3 years, Nangongja has been occasionally going to the Woodleaf School to give lessons to the children there. After that, he will stay at home. But according to Sky's observation, Nangongja's strength seems to have increased again. I once sent a Hyuga ninja to investigate Nangongja. Whether it is the energy in his body or the vitality of his body, Nangongja is now standing on the edge of the Kage level. Hearing the report of his subordinate, Danzo couldn't help but chuckle twice. I didn't expect that the chess pieces that I arranged occasionally in the past really played a role. Since Sky is here, Nangongja will be our hidden strength. When the time is right, he can become a sharp sword that can cut through the thorns for us. After Danzo finished speaking, the bodyguard who came out from the shadows didn't dare to speak casually. Danzo's office returned to silence again, only the sound of Danzo tapping his fingertips from time to time could be heard. You go and inform Itachi Uchiha to report to me after this mission is over. I have something to say to him. After a long silence, Danzo said to his bodyguard. Yes. After the bodyguard responded, he once again walked back to the shadows where he came out from. Only a few slight mechanical sounds proved that the bodyguard has left. Yuan Fei, oh Yuan Fei, you are really old. If you were young, whether it was the Uchiha's movement or the Hyuga's dissatisfaction, how could you care about it? Look at you now, you are so timid, let me help you make a decision. If you can't make up your mind, then you should retire from the position of Hokage. In the empty office, only Danzo was left, silently talking to himself. Danzo's low and firm voice echoed in the office. In Nangong's house, in Mishiro's room. Mishiro was holding a pen and writing something in a small book in front of him. Sigh. After stopping writing, Mishiro threw the pen in his hand to the side. He also let out a soft sigh, a little sad and helpless. What's more strange is that the words in front of Mishiro's book that were clearly visible just now quietly disappeared. Only a blank page was left, under the light, reflecting a pale yellow light. Mishiro, eat. Mishiro's door was suddenly knocked, followed by Nangong's voice calling Mishiro to eat. Mishiro looked at the book in front of him, reached out to close it and put it in a box, then turned around and replied, "I'm coming." Nangongja went to the living room. Nangong Ro and Little Linger, who just finished a mission, were all sitting at the dining table. But the food was not touched at all. Obviously they were waiting for Mishiro to arrive to eat together. Okay, what are you waiting for me for? Let's just eat. Mishiro glanced at Nangongja. Naturally he knew that Nangongja invited him to eat together, so he rolled his eyes at Nangongja. Nangongja noticed Mishiro rolling his eyes at him, so he awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Then he hurriedly changed the topic, looked at Little Linger and said, "Little Ling, did the mission go smoothly this time?" Little Linger looked at Nangongja, then looked at Mishiro and couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Nangong, your ability to change the topic is really bad. I'm in the same team as Uchiha Yuri Koyuri, who is the top student in our class. It's just a simple mission like clearing a river. Yuri Koyuri and I can already walk on water, so naturally it wasn't difficult." After being criticized by Little Linger, Nangongja felt even more embarrassed. He could only smile embarrassedly. Okay, I knew our Little Linger is the best." Then he reached out his hand and slowly stroked Little Linger's head. Little Linger turned her head away in disdain, but her eyes revealed unconcealable happiness. Chapter 118. Itachi Uchiha was very puzzled. He was obviously an Umbu subordinate of Hokage, but when he finished the task of leaving the village and handed over some procedures, suddenly a Root Umbu came to him and said that the leader of Root, Shimura Danzo, wanted to see him. Itachi Uchiha really couldn't figure out the reason. But Danzo is also one of the most respected leaders of Woodleaf. As a ninja subordinate of Woodleaf, Itachi felt that he should go and see Danzo. So Itachi Uchiha also took a piece of black cloth, and under the leadership of the Root Ninja he went to the underground base of Root. After Itachi's blindfold was removed, he slightly adapted to it. Itachi saw a figure sitting opposite him. Half of his face was covered with bandages, and one of his hands was also wrapped in bandages hanging around his neck. Itachi recognized this person at a glance. He is the leader of Woodleaf Root, Shimura Danzo. As a ninja from a big family, Itachi is naturally very polite. Half kneeling on the ground, he slightly lowered his head and said to Danzo sitting opposite him, "I don't know why Danzo-sama summoned me, a ninja of Hokage's Umbu?" Although his attitude was respectful and his tone was soft, but these words were a bit sarcastic. In particular, the words, Umbu under Hokage's direct command, were heavily emphasized. "Why are you looking for you? Don't you know what your own family has done?" When Danzo heard Itachi's words, he coldly snorted, and a powerful momentum instantly suppressed Itachi's body. In the momentum, there was a strong murderous aura that can't be ignored, which directly put Itachi under great pressure. "Family? I don't know what my Uchiha family has done?" Although under great pressure, Itachi gritted his teeth and said such a sentence from his mouth. As a member of the Uchiha clan, Itachi valued his identity as an Uchiha very much. Someone insulted the Uchiha family in front of him. Even if that person was the leader of the Woodleaf Roots, Shimura Danzo, Itachi would not give in so easily. "You are the eldest son of the Uchiha clan's patriarch, Uchiha Fugaku. Don't you know what your family has done?" Danzo said as he grabbed a document from his desk and threw it in front of Itachi Uchiha. At the same time, Itachi Uchiha withdrew his aura a little so that he could move his body a little and read the documents in front of him. Itachi Uchiha glared fiercely at Shimura Danzo in front of him, but only received a cold snort from Danzo. He picked up the documents in front of him and flipped through a few pages with slight anger. But after flipping through them, Itachi Uchiha's eyes widened as if they were about to open. He could only close the documents in his hand and carefully read from the first page. "Danzo-sama, this kind of document? Do you want my Uchiha clan to end our lives in the Woodleaf Roots?" Itachi Uchiha said as he released his aura. It was as if he wanted to compete with Danzo. Whether the things in these documents are true or false, you will know when you go home. Why are you worried that I am lying to you? Just go home. If this document says that your Uchiha clan has colluded with foreign enemies and attempted to rebel, you can come and find me. It's not impossible for you to take my head. Danzo looked at Itachi, who was half kneeling in front of him. He actually said that if Itachi found out that he was suspicious, he could take his head. This made Itachi a little shocked. Could it be that his family really did such a thing? Itachi couldn't help but ask himself in his heart. In the end, he realized that his father, Uchiha Fugaku, would sometimes do some strange things. After he found out and asked, Uchiha Fugaku didn't say anything and just casually found a reason to send him away. Since that is the case, I will take my leave. Danzo-sama. Itachi Uchiha stood up and bowed slightly to Danzo. Danzo waved his hand and ordered his subordinates to put a mask on Itachi Uchiha's face. Then he led him out of Root's base. Ha! This nail has been planted. The document I gave you is not fake at all. Yuan Fei always told me how loyal Itachi Uchiha is to Woodleaf. Then let me see how trustworthy he is. Danzo wasn't afraid that Itachi Uchiha would bring this document back home and report to Woodleaf about the Uchiha clan's rebellion. This was because the things mentioned in this document were just some random things that were purposely speculated about the Uchiha clan's rebellion. However, after Itachi Uchiha saw this document, Itachi Uchiha obviously wouldn't just investigate these random things. These things were hidden in the shadows. As a member of the Black Ops, Itachi Uchiha naturally had the ability to follow this trail to find the truth. Moreover, with the Uchiha clan's temperament, even if they were suspicious of Woodleaf because of this document, they wouldn't do anything. In Danzo's opinion, among the current high-ranking members of the Uchiha clan, other than Uchiha Fugaku, who was a bit scheming, the rest? Haha, a bunch of idiots whose muscles had grown into their brains. Compared to a sly old fox like Danzo, the difference was huge. Give this Uchiha boy some time, let him carefully investigate his own family, and let him do a thorough investigation of his own family. Let this naive little brat see clearly what kind of people his family is. Danzo looked at Itachi's figure that was gradually fading away and said slowly. After leaving Root's base, Itachi once again lifted his blindfold and stood in a slightly remote corner of Woodleaf. Looking around slightly, Itachi identified the direction and walked towards his own home. In just a moment, Itachi Uchiha arrived at the Uchiha clan's territory in Woodleaf. Several Uchiha clan ninjas in charge of patrolling also saw Itachi Uchiha's figure at this moment. They stepped forward and saluted. Hello Master Itachi, you've worked hard on the mission. If it was in the past, the gentle Itachi might have exchanged greetings with these clan members. But now Itachi's mood was uneasy. He directly walked past these patrolling Uchiha clansmen. Looking at Itachi Uchiha's back, several Uchiha clansmen also began to discuss. What's wrong with Master Itachi? We already greeted him, why is he acting like this? Okay, Master Itachi is famous for his gentle temperament. Maybe he has an urgent matter to see the clan leader? Why are you sulking here? That's right, Master Itachi has always been good to us. Maybe there really is an urgent matter this time. The few of them chatted casually and finally came to a consensus. They continued to patrol the clan's territory. After all, this is a serious matter. Chapter 119. Itachi strode to the courtyard of his home and met many clansmen along the way. After these people greeted Itachi, Itachi still did not respond to any of them, which made them very puzzled. Just as Itachi was about to walk to his home, a childish voice sounded from behind. Brother Itachi, you're back? You've been gone for a long time, Sasuke missed you so much. Itachi finally stopped and turned around to look at the child who was talking to him and hitting me. Black hair, a pair of black pupils, and a face somewhat similar to Itachi. The person who just spoke was Itachi's younger brother, the second son of the Uchiha clan's head Uchiha Fugaku, and the second young master of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. When Itachi turned around, Sasuke threw himself into Itachi's arms. He hugged him tightly and said, Brother Itachi, you lied, you said that this mission was very simple. You can come back in half a month, but now it's been 2 months since you came back from outside. Looking at his younger brother, Uchiha Itachi's anger and resentment disappeared in an instant. He lowered his voice and squatted down so that his eyes were on the same level as Uchiha Sasuke's and said, Uchiha Sasuke, it's brother's fault, the mission is a little troublesome. It was delayed for a few days, but after this mission last night I can rest for a long time. Brother will train with Sasuke, okay? Sasuke heard his brother's words, but he didn't pay attention to the training part behind, but asked anxiously, "Ah? Brother, your mission is very troublesome, do you have it? If you're injured we have to go home and find Mom. Mom is amazing, she cured my knee last time." Listening to his brother's concern for him, Itachi Uchiha's heart was also warm. He touched his brother's head and said, "It's okay, brother is very powerful. How come you have it?" In fact, Itachi was indeed injured in this mission, and the injury was not light. Now he relied on this Sharingan to gain the strength of a special Jonin. This time, Itachi went to assassinate a person who was protected by a Jonin team. Although he finally completed the mission successfully, he also paid a big price. It was also because of the injury that affected the journey. He rested outside the village for nearly a month before returning to the ninja village. But how could Itachi say that he was injured to his brother, which made Sasuke more worried? "That's right. I know that brother is the best, the mission can be completed easily." Little Sasuke nodded vigorously as if he was trying to increase the credibility of his words. Itachi looked at his little brother and carried him on his back. "Let's go, brother hasn't carried you for a long time. This time I'll carry you home." Hearing Itachi's words, Sasuke also leaned over Itachi's back with a satisfied look. Looking at Sasuke's smiling face, Itachi's heart sank. Although the information Danzo showed him didn't have conclusive evidence to prove that Uchiha clan colluded with foreign enemies in an attempt to subvert Woodleaf's rule. But Itachi was also a person who had seen the wind and waves, although these clues weren't obvious. But combined together, it can still be seen that Uchiha clan's plan was not small, which has threatened Woodleaf's rule. As a member of the Umbu, Itachi naturally knew that Woodleaf has the power that Uchiha clan can't stop. As long as Woodleaf is willing to pay the price, it's not impossible to destroy Uchiha clan, who now has no peak power like Hokage. "Father, how can you be so greedy? How long after the war you want to plot the entire foundation of Woodleaf?" Sasuke, who was born after the war, Itachi really didn't want them to go through such a cruel baptism of blood and fire. I will protect you well." Itachi's mouth whispered softly, his voice was so low that even Sasuke, who was lying on his sad side, didn't hear it. But the promise was very serious. For this promise, Itachi can do anything as long as he can protect his brother. Even if Itachi had already walked to his house, even if he was carrying his brother, Itachi still quickly arrived at the door of his house. After gently knocking on the door, Itachi opened the door. Uchiha Mikoto also heard the sound of her door being opened the door and saw her two sons at the door. She didn't know when Sasuke fell asleep on Itachi's back. He made a slight snoring sound, and his nose twitched from time to time. "Mother, I'm back," Itachi respectfully said to his mother, and at the same time, gently put down the sleeping Sasuke on his back. Uchiha Mikoto picked up Sasuke and walked inside the house. Can't you be so polite to me? Can't you learn from your brother, and act like a spoiled child in front of your mother?" Looking at her eldest son who has always been very calm, Uchiha Mikoto couldn't help but say, "It's right to respect for mother." Itachi still said with a serious face, "Oh, my child is really not cute." Mikoto pouted her mouth and whispered slightly. With Itachi's hearing he could naturally hear what his mother said. But after a slight smile he didn't pay attention to it. Walking to the living room of his house, Uchiha Fugaku was also sitting on the tatame, reading a newspaper. After seeing Itachi come back he also said, "Oh? Itachi is back. How was the mission? Did it go smoothly?" Hearing his father's question, Itachi immediately replied, "Thank you for your concern, father. Although there were some troubles, they were solved. The mission was completed smoothly." "Good, that's good. As a member of the Uchiha clan, no matter what kind of difficulties, we must face them bravely. You did a good job." Uchiha Fugaku stood up, walked to Itachi's side, and reached out his hand to pat his son's shoulder. Then he went to his wife, Uchiha Mikoto, looked at the sleeping Sasuke and said, "Go get the family's best medicine and send it to Itachi later." Hearing her husband's words, Mikoto didn't care about sending Sasuke back to his room. She looked at her son anxiously and asked, "Itachi, you're injured? Is it serious? Did you take care of it? Go to your room and wait, Mom will treat you after putting Sasuke down." Mikoto's relationship with Shinakushina is not bad, and she also has some foundation in medical ninjutsu, so she can still treat injuries. Hearing that Itachi was injured, she was eager to treat her child. Just a moment ago she said that her child wasn't cute enough, but now she cared more about her child than anyone else. At this moment, the sentimental mother's eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist. Itachi's heart was touched, and at the same time, he took a deep look at Uchiha Fugaku, who was standing next to his mother. Chapter 120. Uchiha Mikoto put Sasuke in the room, covered him with a quilt, and walked to Itachi's door. Uchiha Mikoto reached out and gently knocked on her son's door. "Itachi, mommy will come in and check your wounds." But after waiting for a long time, there was still no response. She hurriedly pushed open Uchiha's door and saw Itachi lying on the ground. "Itachi, are you okay?" This scared Mikoto, and she immediately ran to her son's side. One of her hands was covered with a glowing green chakra ball, and gently covered Itachi's body. The gentle nature of the medical chakra slowly penetrated Itachi's body, and Uchiha Mikoto could clearly see her son's physical condition. Internal examination. There are minor injuries, but he has almost recovered, and will be fine after a few days of rest. Meridian examination. There are signs of swelling which may be due to a large amount of chakra passing through the meridians. It's not serious, but he needs to rest for a period of time to adjust. Spiritual power examination. The spiritual power activity is low, which may be caused by a large amount of genjutsu or excessive use of genjutsu. The specific situation needs to be further examined by professionals. Uchiha Mikoto's mouth faintly murmured Itachi Uchiha's physical condition, and her eyes were very serious and slightly anxious. After checking Itachi's internal organs, meridians and spiritual power, she found that there were some minor problems, and there was no possibility of causing a ninja of Itachi's level to faint. So Mikoto closed her eyes, and after silently saying "open" in her heart, her originally dark eyes now turned into a somewhat dark red, and the three tomos slowly rotated in her irises. As the wife of the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Mikoto was not only a beautiful vase with a cute face, on the contrary, Uchiha Mikoto was also a genius when she was young. It was also because of Uchiha Mikoto and Uchiha Fugaku's talent that a genius with infinite potential like Itachi was born. Even little Sasuke, although only 3 years old, his physical fitness, meridians width, flexibility and toughness are far beyond his peers. The Magatama in Mikoto's eyes spun faster and faster, leaving behind afterimages that almost formed a circle in her eyes. Mikoto felt the changes in chakra in her body. Her right hand turned into a sword and pressed against Itachi's forehead. Streams of eye power flowed into Itachi's body. After a short while, Mikoto removed her finger from Itachi's forehead. Looking at Mikoto's appearance, drops of sweat were dripping down her face. The pair of Sharingan that was originally bright red in color has been forced to converge at this moment. Mikoto's expression couldn't help but become tired, and her face paled. Ugh! Itachi Uchiha, who had fallen to the ground, finally regained consciousness. He looked at his mother in front of him and couldn't help but ask, "Mother, what happened to you? Why do you look so bad?" Looking at her eldest son, Mikoto put her hand on Itachi's head and gently stroked it. "Mother is fine, it's just that I consumed a lot of energy just now. When I came to find you, you had already fallen to the ground. After I checked you, I found that your eye power is seriously lacking. It should be because you overdrew the power of your Sharingan when you were fighting someone, so I used a secret technique to separate a part of my eye power for you so that you can wake up as soon as possible." Listening to his mother's words, Itachi's heart suddenly felt very uncomfortable. In order to save him, his mother actually used such a dangerous secret technique. As a member of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha naturally knew how dangerous this kind of eye power transmission is. If one is not careful, if one is lucky, the Sharingan will degenerate. If one is unlucky, one will directly lose both eyes. How can he let his mother do such a thing? "Mother, you don't have to use such a dangerous method to save me. As long as you properly recuperate, there will always be a way to make up for the loss of eye power. But if something happens to you, it won't be able to make up for it, right?" Mikoto looked at Itachi, who was looking at her with a worried expression, and smiled. Although her face was a bit pale, but a unique feminine radiance of motherhood slowly emitted from her. "I know that the loss of eye power can be slowly made up for. But when I look at the pain my child is going through, I see that my child is frowning. As a mother, even if I know that I am doing something pointless and dangerous, I must do it." Mikoto reached out her hand and stroked her child's hair. "My little Itachi has been very obedient since he was a child, very sensible. Many people have told mother that my little Itachi's talent is far beyond ordinary people, and that he will be the pride of the Uchiha in the future. But mother doesn't want my little Itachi to become so powerful. I have even prayed countless times to the heavens to let my child become an ordinary person, because if my child becomes powerful, he will be forced to become a sharp knife for the Uchiha. Rather than that, it is better to be mediocre. But the heavens still didn't listen to my pleas. My little Itachi is indeed a rare genius. Just like that, he graduated early, became a genin, rushed to the battlefield, promoted to a chunin, and finally joined the Umbu. You have indeed made the Uchiha proud, but in contrast, you have deep and shallow scars on your body, and your soul is filled with cracks. Since childhood, my little Itachi has been a kind person. Whenever he sees an injured animal, he will beg me to bandage it. Whenever he sees someone in trouble, he will do his best to help them. Just like now, he is being forced to take another person's life. My little Itachi's heart is filled with helplessness. Mother knows very well. Mother really doesn't want my son to struggle in this kind of torment. Mikoto said. Tears flowed out from her eyes. She hugged her child in her arms and said these words with some emotion. Mama. Itachi was just about to call Mikoto Mausama, but halfway through he changed it to mother, which he rarely called out. Mother is here. Hearing Itachi's voice, Mikoto also responded. Mother, no matter what will happen to me, I will protect my mother and brother. If anyone wants to hurt you, I will not let them go. Even if it is my father. Itachi silently added such a sentence in his heart, but no one knew. But this kind of resolution is also engraved in the depths of Itachi's heart. Letting go of her hands, Mikoto wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She said with a smile, all right, crying like this in front of your own child. Mother will go out first. I have already checked your injuries. It is not a big problem, you will be fine after a good rest. After saying that, Mikoto walked out of Itachi's room. Weasel was left alone in his room, deep in thought. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.